All right, so now we'll officially call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask our city clerk to please call the roll.
Councilman DeCiccio. Councilwoman Gallego.
Here.
Councilman Nowakowski. Councilwoman Stark. Councilman Valenzuela. Here. Councilman Waring. Councilwoman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Pastor. Here. Mayor Stanton.
I am here. We have an interpreter with us today. Ms. Torres, please introduce yourself for the audience.
Hello, my name is Alex Torres. If somebody needs interpreter services into Spanish, si alguien necesita servicios de interpretación al español, les pueden proporcionar un audífono atrás. Gracias.
Thank you so much. Next, we are going to have citizen comments. Under our city council rules, citizens have up to 3 minutes to provide testimony to the city council on any item that they want that is non-agendized. We do 15 minutes at the beginning, and then any who are not able to speak now will have the opportunity to address this council at the end of today's meeting. Our first speaker is Jinhu Chen, followed by Yaksun Dang, followed by Ryan Dang. Mr. Chen, good to see you.
Okay, good to see you. Good afternoon, dear council members, Mayor Stanton, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jinhu Chen. I'm here to tell something you might not like to listen to. We shouldn't be like Walking Dead and have only money in our mindset. We shouldn't be only material rights, but we still need a full life of spiritual happiness. I'm usually polite, but today we feel I'm rude and angry. Stop your rudeness by issuing permits to demolish the Chinese Cultural Center. Remove the iconic roof tiles, destroy the religious settings, and infringes on our freedom of religion or the First Amendment to the Constitution. To the city of Phoenix and True North companies, you may have the right to do it, but it isn't the right thing to do to demolish the Chinese Cultural Center. From what you have done so far and what we have now up to date, we have already felt we are politically, culturally, racially, religiously discriminated. You have played politics to deceive us and think we are an easy target without political consequences. We have already known that True North had played transactions under the table, and you pretend that we don't know you play politics under the table too. We do. And the people are watching you for the 2018 midterm elections. History does sometimes repeat itself. You had demolished Chinatown, not once, but twice. And now it will be the third time. 20 years ago, the city of Phoenix welcomed the construction of Chinese Cultural Center. And 20 years later, the city of Phoenix intends to destruct it. In 1860s, Chinese workers built the Transcontinental Railroad. In 1880s, Chinese were expelled by passing the Chinese Exclusion Act. A long time ago in March 2001, the Taliban destroyed the Burmese Buddha in Afghanistan. Here in Phoenix, we are now facing the Taliban second, either you or True North. And the Chinese Cultural Center, which is full of religious elements, will follow suit, the fate of Burmese Buddha. And you are ignorant to the history and intelligent to the culture, you will do what Taliban did. We know how the Native Americans and their culture were historically treated. It's a lesson. Do you really learn from it? Or will you again do that against us? The Chinese Cultural Center is one of the most precious values that we share with the local communities. We are angry because we love it. But you hate it and try to issue permits to rogues to demolish it. If the Chinese Cultural Center is demolished, it will be a shame to the city of Phoenix, and all us, including you, will be ridiculed and damned by our future generations. When diversity is emphasized, you try to issue permits to demolish the Chinese Cultural Center and discriminate our religions. You despise we are a community of silent people, and you don't need to respect our civil and constitutional rights, do you? I need to ask you, the Phoenix City Council, do you have a mind of the First Amendment to the Constitution? Do you have the awareness of the cultural fascism? Do you think the Chinese Americans are still the second class of citizens? Do you think that we still have to experience the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882? You think we don't have many votes, have no donation, are not interested in political participations. You are wrong. We have woken up. Yes, we are a very small percentage of the population, and you think you can sacrifice our rights, neglect our voice and presence, and demolish our religious settings. You humiliation of us, humiliate Phoenix as an international metropolitan. You deliver a message to the city, the state, the nation, and the world that you are cultural Nazism. It is a cultural genocide. The mayor of Phoenix 20 years ago who helped construct the Chinese Cultural Center was a Republican. And the mayor today who intends to destroy the Chinese Cultural Center is a Democratic. Don't play partisan politics by trying to make us silence victims again. We will condemn you if you try to issue permits to demolish our cultural and religious elements. We will condemn you if you take a cultural Nazi stance to eradicate our culture. You feel shocked and deny all my accusations. Please respect our culture and our religious rights. Stop helping True North Company demolish the Chinese Cultural Center. We are now at the turning point of creating new Phoenix history. Either you stand with us to preserve the Chinese Cultural Center, or you can issue permits to destruct the Chinese Cultural Center. You make a choice, a historical choice. History is on your side, but it has consequences. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chen, for your testimony. Yushan Dang is next, followed by Ryan Dang.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Yushan Dang, and I'm 11. I go to Basha's Accelerated Middle School program. The first time I heard about this crisis is at the beginning of August, when my mom told me and my little brother that if we wanted to save the Chinese garden, then we will have to hire a lawyer. So me and my little brother donated $200 from our salaries to this cause. I also wrote a letter to the mayor on August the 13th about supporting us on preserving the center and how valuable and special the center is. I've been to 3 of the protests, which was on August the 13th, the first protest, August the 20th, the second protest, and August the 26th, the candlelight blessing of El Ranch Supermarket. It is a shame that on September 12th that I couldn't go to the hearing, but I did manage to get all the speeches on YouTube. My favorite speech was Elizabeth Mann's speech. After listening to her speech, I learned that the Chinatown used so much of those high-quality construction materials, which is extremely surprising. My mom went to all of the protests except one, but the most recent and frustrating protest on September the 21st is when my mom and several other people went to pray to Guan Yin, and when she and her friend were about to enter a Chinese restaurant at the center for lunch, a female patrol guard told my mom that she couldn't stand there because it was private property. And she groundlessly accused my mother that she will cause damage to the property. Eventually, my mom and her friends left without lunch due to her harassment. That is how unreasonable True North has been. I wish I was there to protect my mom and reason with her. How can you interfere with the restaurant owner and customers' rights to conduct normal business? Here's a question. Would you prefer a mediocre headquarters for a casual company, or would you want an antique Chinese garden that only exists in Arizona? The garden is very precious and unique, as described by Elizabeth Mann, because the specialized builders are already retired and unable to build these kinds of centers anymore, and its unique materials are no longer available. It's also a historical site with a variety of agricultural styles from China, and it will be the one and only Chinese garden that's this glorious and beautiful. True North Companies is trying to take away this historical beauty and replace it with an ordinary company headquarters. So which side do you choose, the center or True North? A while ago, I went to a shopping center at night to pass out flyers about our effort to save the garden. To my surprise, more people than not had already heard about it, and they all expressed their support, and they cannot understand why would someone destroy such a heritage and gift to humankind. They felt that this cultural center does not only belong to the Asian community, but to all Arizona residents and even the visitors from other countries and states, because it's so rare and unique. History will record the infamy of those who destroy it for sure. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Dang. That was a great testimony for 11-year-old. We appreciate you taking the time to come down. How about Ryan Dang? Did you provide testimony as well? Please come forward. And then I think we are going to have enough time for Xiaobo Zhu.
Thank you. Dear Mayor and the Phoenix City Council, I'm Ryan Dang. I'm 8 and a 3rd grader at Tulsa Montessori School in Phoenix. Do you like vacation? Of course you do. You've probably been to Europe and others, but have you ever been to China or Asia? Do you know how much it costs to take a plane to Asia? Over $1,000 at least. Now that's a ton. But have you realized how much you would spend for staying at a hotel, dining, and so on? It might already eat up thousands of bucks. Have you ever heard about the Covco Center at 668 North 44th Street, Phoenix? If you go there, it is way cheaper because all you have to do is just use some gas, but it does break a bit of the ozone layer. Still, it's better than having to ride a plane for a day or two. The center was built by Chinese professional architects 20 years ago, and it took them months and years. And now the new owner plans on crushing it with bulldozers, maybe. It was really hard for the artisans, and now there aren't many good architects anymore to build it. So, if it's destroyed, the percentage of a new one appearing somewhere else is somewhere around 10%. That's not much. The beauty and culture of the center is really similar to the ones in China. In fact, the McDonald's, Burger King, Starbucks, KFC, and Pizza Hut restaurants in China are all decorated in a fancy Chinese way, and the buildings are like the Covco Center. But the center is also a bit more special than the real China. You know why? Because the center shows so many cool features like the Monkey King, Confucius, and the Pigsy statues. I haven't been there yet, but I have heard about how beautiful a place it has grown into. My mom has told me about it too, and I really wish I could go there after it reopens. But if it dies at the owner's hands, that would make me very disappointed and furious. Plus, if it gets saved, we will make it an even better tourist attraction. So please help protect it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Excellent testimony. How much time do we have for the 15 minutes? 3 more minutes. We have time for one more. Xiaobo Zhu.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Xiaobo Zhu. I'm here to talk about Chinese Cultural Center. The Chinese Cultural Center is not an ordinary private property. It has served the Phoenix metropolitan area in the past 20 years in many aspects. So I request that the Phoenix government help us to protect it from being altered, damaged, demolished, or destroyed, and keep it as a Chinese cultural center. Here's why I said it's not an ordinary private property. Firstly, the Chinese Cultural Center was built at the request of Phoenix government 20 years ago. The government initiated the idea to build a Chinese Cultural Center in Phoenix to promote Sino-American relationship and to showcase Phoenix's vibrant developing momentum. The city provided full support to bring necessary personnel in place to help design and build it. 2 government officials went to China with the developer to ask the U.S. Embassy to issue visa to the craftsmen in order for them to come here to help build the center. Secondly, the government and the developer of the center came to an agreement to make it into a Chinese cultural center, and corresponding zoning requirements came along for this purpose. Thirdly, the Phoenix City set up signage on the roadside near the center in brown color to indicate it as a tourist attraction site. I see all this effort as city's commitment to have such a cultural center in place at Phoenix. I hope the city keeps its commitment and keep the property as a Chinese cultural center as is. The center is not an ordinary private property also because it has served the Phoenix metropolitan area in many aspects since it was built. Firstly, it was an educational site for school kids to learn about Chinese language and culture. There are thousands of students are learning Chinese in the valley. There are quite a few schools went there for field trip. And I have pictures I got from website. The Cub Scout went to visit the Chinese Cultural Center. So let's keep it for the school kids. Secondly, the Chinese Cultural Center hosted many public events to celebrate Chinese holidays. During Chinese Week, thousands of booths were there. Thousands of people visited there to watch the Chinese-style performances, to try Chinese food, to buy Chinese specialty products, to learn Chinese arts and crafts, and to explore the beautiful Chinese garden. Thirdly, there used to be many shops of many kinds there, including a grocery store, a few Chinese restaurants, a few gift shops, a bookstore, a bank, and a Chinese medicine shop. I went there dining and shopping for things I don't usually find elsewhere. I went there seeking Chinese herb medicine to treat my illness. I bought DVDs of Chinese movies that helped me get away from my homesickness. I really enjoyed the feeling that I was closer to my home country, to my parents, every time I was there. In conclusion, the Chinese Cultural Center, despite being built on a private property, is in a class of its own as a special and important piece of the city's heritage, and it's taking an irreplaceable place in its citizens' hearts and minds. I hope Phoenix government to step up and do whatever you can to save it from being altered, damaged, or demolished, and keep it as is. Phoenix will be remembered for this matter, however the outcome turns out to be. Chinese American community will remember you. Phoenix people will remember you. Many places in the U.S. and outside of U.S. are watching Phoenix. So good luck making a wise decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Xu. The remainder of the citizens here to speak on citizen comment will have an opportunity to do so at the conclusion of our formal meeting, so there will be a chance for everyone. We'll now move on with our agenda, but before we move on with our formal agenda, Vice Mayor Pastor wanted to say a few words about our colleague. Vice Mayor.
Yes, I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues. One of our colleagues, Councilman Sal DeCiccio, lost his father, and so our prayers are with him and our blessings are with him. And as we sit as colleagues, we may not always agree on items, we may not always agree on the way our thought process is, but I can say as one that sits up here with many different opinions, that when it comes to our family, we are very protective, and our families make great sacrifices. And so I just want to wish condolences on the behalf of our council to Councilman DeCiccio.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor, for the thoughtful comments on behalf of the entire council regarding our colleague, Councilman DeCiccio, and the loss of his father. Obviously, our thoughts and prayers are with he and his family. Next, we're going to move on to the 24-hour paragraph. Mr. City Clerk.
The titles of the following ordinance and resolution numbers on the agenda were available to the public at least 24 hours prior to this council meeting, and therefore may be read by title or agenda item only. Ordinances number G6369, S43966 through 44006, and resolutions number 21580 through 21582.
Thank you very much. Now we have minutes of previous meetings. Councilman Nowakowski, have you had a chance to review the formal meeting minutes from July 6, 2017?
Yes, Mayor, and a motion to approve.
The motion, there's a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Next, we'll move on to liquor license applications. Vice Mayor, is there an omnibus motion?
Motion to approve items 2 through 26.
There's a motion. There's a second. Any comments or questions by members of the council? Any cards? All in favor of the proposed motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Next is ordinance resolutions, new business, planning and zoning. Do we have an omnibus motion prepared on those items, Vice Mayor?
Whoa. I'm sorry. Motion to approve items 27 through 94, except the following. Items 27, 31, 32, 33, 58, 87, 88, 93, and 94. Items 93 and 94 are as corrected. Item 65 has been withdrawn, and excluding these items for public comment. 30, 31, 33, 49, 54, 58, 59, 62, 79, 93, 94.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Is there a second? There's a motion. There is a second. Any comments or questions by members of this council on the omnibus motion? Any other items we'd like to be withheld for individual vote? Roll call.
Gallego,
Yes.
Nowakowski,
Yes.
Stark, Valenzuela, Waring, Williams,
Yes.
Pastor, Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so that item passes unanimously. Let's see again. I think we can take 27, 31, 32, and 33 as a singular vote. So, Vice Mayor, are there motions on those items?
Do we have cards? Hold on just a moment.
On those items, okay, so we can take
We'll have to take them separately.
speak on all of them at once. Okay.
So let's vote on 20.
Yeah, we take them all, oh, except for 30. What's 30?
I don't know what 30, I think he thinks 31.
Well, he wanted to speak on 30. Should we have pulled that item?
I didn't pull 30.
There was a card on 30. Should we have pulled that item?
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion is on which items, Vice Mayor?
27, 30, 31, and 32. You want,
And 33.
okay, hang on.
Not pulling 30, but it's 31, 32, and 33. I'm not doing 30, so 31, 32, 33. 7, 31, 32.
So the motion is 27, 31, and 32. And 33.
Second.
There is a motion and a second on those items. All of those items concern membership dues to various organizations for the city: Alliance for Innovation, National League of Cities, U.S. Conference of Mayors, League of Cities. So we're going to hear Leonard Clark. Could you provide testimony on those items involving dues to various organizations? You come forward. So the ones that you parked for 31 and 33, that concerns National League of Cities and League of Cities and Towns. Please.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Leonard Clark, lifelong resident of Phoenix, Arizona, born right down the street at Good Samaritan Hospital, even though they don't call it that anymore. I strongly support your funding the League of Towns and Cities and Arizona's, or the National League of Cities and Arizona's League of Towns and Cities. We need them more than ever. We've got a legislature and a governor who thinks it's quite all right to let weapons that are used in the commission of crimes, such as Tucson had an ordinance essentially that they had to melt them down, so if a gun was used to murder somebody, now they can't do it, they have to sell it. So we have a legislature and a governor right now who take away the sovereignty of the people of Arizona. They tell us what we can do, so I don't even know why you're here really, because everything you pass, if they don't like it, they do a law preempting what you do. So we need the league, or the cities and towns that you're voting this on, the League of Towns and Cities more than ever, even though it is a futile battle because of gerrymandering. You're still here trying to do the right thing. You know I don't agree with you on a lot of things, but this I agree with you on. We need this more than ever. Our own rulemaking capacity, our people, what we want to do here is under direct threat, our democracy, by the folks down to the legislature who do not believe in that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. So there's a motion, there's a second. Any comments by members of our council? Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Noakowski.
Yes.
Stark. Valenzuela. Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes 7-1. Next item is item number 30. Is there a motion on item 30?
Move item 30. Second.
Motion is second. Mr. Clark, did you provide testimony on 30? LexisNexis.
Thank you, Mayor. Now, in general, I think I put neutral on it.
That is correct.
Yes. My name is Leonard Clark. In general, I'm for it, but I am concerned because I want to make sure that this app that the Phoenix Police Department will be utilizing, you know, if this much crime is in this area, if you're in the Willow neighborhood, if you're in Ahwatukee, whatever city, village you're in, I want to make sure that these statistics aren't taken out of place, because our property values as homeowners, everything that we cherish about and are proud about in our communities, you know, that can be in a way that instead of using it as a tool to help us bring down crime, you know, it could also be used as a tool by some, not saying you. So if I live in a neighborhood, somebody wants to up the crime statistics, broken windows, you know, this is what realtors, people will look at when they determine how much you're going to sell your house for, your business. This could affect our property values. So I hope that this new web-based app is used fairly, because it's going to be a shame if a realtor pulls it out and says, well, we don't want to go over to this neighborhood, you know, because, well, it looks like their crime is worse when maybe they're just specially enforcing going after one neighborhood more than the other. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Clark. I assume the information collected will be distributed evenly to everyone as transparently as possible, so people will use it for various purposes. But the city wants to provide that information as transparently as possible. That's the purpose of the request for resources. All right, so there's a motion, there's a second. Any comments or questions by members of this council? Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Noakowski. Stark. Valenzuela. Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Now we're on item 49. This concerns city-owned property at southeast corner 25th Avenue in Peoria. Is there a motion on 49?
Move item 49. Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's a card on that. I actually have multiple cards on this item. Ms. Greta Rogers, did you provide testimony on this item? And then followed by Mr. Thomas Stoops, Jerry Von Goss, and Tim Sierakowski.
Well, you almost had your wish a month ago, but God wasn't ready for me. He didn't have a place available.
Oh, Greta.
On 49, I'm glad to see we're beginning this long, arduous process that Jerry Van Gast, Tim Sierkowski, and I, along with Tom Stoops, our attorney, have pleaded for, fought for, and proselyted for over 3.5 years. selling of unneeded parklands, not developed, no plan for development within a 5-year period beginning today. That we're on the way to doing it, and that funds, it says right here, funds from the sale will be placed in 3 PI funds, that's Parks and Preserve Initiative, from which the council stole $15,640,000 on March 14 of 13 to pay golf debt they'd allowed to accumulate unaddressed for 15 years. For the Parks and Recreation Department, this is the right thing to do. It's unquestioned. It is to begin, as I proposed, in a letter that was sent to management, and Inger Erickson, our able and excellent Parks and Rec director, the first one we've had of competency in the over 25 years that I've been coming here and speaking. $15,640,000, that's $3,128,000 per year. I thank you. I want it accomplished, and no BS and no excuses. Thank you.
I thank you very much, Ms. Rogers. It is good to see you here at these meetings. Thomas Stoops is next, followed by Jerry Von Goss and Tim Sierakowski. Mr. Stoops.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Stoops, 12435 South 47th Avenue. And as I was introduced, I'm a lawyer that represents some concerned citizens, and obviously we're very in favor of this sale. Having said that, I'd like to visit the nature of the time consumption in this. First of all, there are multiple properties that have been identified as parklands to be sold. Only 2 of them, as far as I know, have gone through the vetting process. And this process is so slow that it'll be an extremely difficult thing to get these monies paid back. It's been controversial about taking the monies from other sales of other city properties for the repayment of this. So our group is suggesting that only 1/3 of non-parks properties be used for that repayment purpose. I would point out that several of the properties that you've already decided to sell haven't been vetted yet. If you take the process in the way that you're doing it, it could take 1,000 years to sell the properties that the city needs to sell for its revenue. If you do them one at a time and it takes 6 months, thanks to the wonderful Greta Rogers, you've identified over 6,000 properties that the city owns, non-parks properties that could be sold to raise needed revenue. But if you vet them individually and then bring them to council, put them out for bid and then ultimately go to the brokers, and you don't do them in bunches, it'll never happen. You've got a whole bunch of potential revenue for property you don't need, and you can sell them off and make a lot of money for the city that it very much needs. And what we're suggesting is that the vetting process be done in bunches so that then several properties can be brought for vote all at once, marketed all at once, done efficiently, and so the city can raise revenue from property it doesn't need and has no plan for. Thank you.
Thank you for that testimony, Mr. Stoops. Jerry Von Goss.
Good afternoon, Council. Jerry Van Gass. I hate to correct Greta, but it's been 4.5 years since the $15 million was taken to bail out the municipal golf courses. But funny things happen in the process of going after that repayment of that money. Ms. Rogers, on her own, prior to any of this happening, had come across city parcels, vacant city parcels that nobody in the city seemed to even know about. And yet, we've talked to neighborhood services and others. Millions of dollars, millions, have been spent to maintain these unused properties that are on the city's tax roll. It's inconceivable, and it's a windfall for the city. And I hope you realize that these properties, there's a $6,000 number of properties out there. Who knows? The full inventory hasn't been done, but the money has been spent to maintain all these properties, taxpayer money, and it needs to stop. And you can not only stop wasting that money, but you can bring in revenue from selling these properties. And contrary to what a lot of people think, we need more Greta Rogers. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Von Goss. Tim Sierakowski.
Good afternoon, Tim Sierakowski. I want to go back to the last council meeting when this was introduced, because I think we're missing our point that we originally had this, that 3PI money had to be paid back. And we were going to take all the different property that was listed out of the 6,000 parcels that was just recently discovered, and we were going to repay 3PI out of that money. I'm not sure what happened to that, and I'm not sure if we have enough parks property at the present time to pay back 3PI money that's really owed to the Parks Department. So I want to go back to originally what we were discussed and say, look, all these 6,000 pieces of property, we need to get 3PI paid back. So we need to take some of this money from all the parks property and once again pay back 3PI. Because at the rate this is going with just using parks property, Greta will be gone by then. I think we also need to address how the sale of the property is taking place. It's not working, what you guys have been doing for the last number of years. I'm sorry to say, it's just not working. We need to come up with a new system. We need to put brokers in charge of this. We need to hire a number of different brokers all across the city and start marketing these products. Because they are products that can generate money for the city, and we need to start getting rid of them so that, once again, like Jerry was saying, we don't have to take care of them. Come on, folks, it's your duty to start acting. We can't take 2 years to sell a piece of property. It's a joke. This needs to be done now. We need to start rocking and rolling in the city of Phoenix and start acting like a professional city. Because right now, one piece of property, we've been discussing this now for 2 years, this one parks property, and it's still not up for sale. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I believe there are no other further cards on this item. I'll now turn to members of the council. There's a motion in favor and a second. Are there any comments by members of this council? Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Stark. Valenzuela. Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Next item on the agenda is item 54.
Move to approve item 54.
Second.
The motion is second. Mr. Clark, did you provide testimony on 54? This is gaming grant monies to City of Phoenix organizations by the Tohono O'odham Nation.
Thank you, Mayor Stanton and City Council. My name is Leonard Clark. Live here in the City of Phoenix. I strongly hope you will vote for this. I thank the Tohono O'odham Nation for, I guess, a lot of this or all of this grant will be going to the Phoenix Indian Still Park Learning Center. I'm hoping that this money will be used to show not only the positive things, I guess, of these Indian schools, so-called Indian schools, where families were separated and segregated and beaten and abused and disappeared in some cases. I'm hoping that will also be shown, but I want to thank the Tohono O'odham Nation. We need to not forget our history has been written by the victors, and now it is time for those who were vanquished wrongfully to have their history told right here in Phoenix. It shouldn't just be all about the beautiful things that happened at Phoenix Indian Still Park School. It should also include those other things. So thank you. I hope you'll vote for this, and thank you to the great Tohono O'odham Nation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. There's a motion in favor and a second. Any additional comments or questions by members of this council? I'll just say the resources are going, I think in some has already gone to the Phoenix Indian School Visitor Center at Steele Indian School Park. I had a chance to go to the grand opening of that over the weekend. It's spectacular, and it's not just there as a visitor center, but it's used by us here on the City Council or members of the community for community events. They have a boardroom, and they have a nice, very beautiful room that can seat up to 150. So if you have larger group meetings or events, it's going to be an awesome addition to the community, not just to celebrate the great history of the women and men who attended Phoenix Indian School, but also available to the community as a whole. So thank you to Hodo Nation, a money well spent to support the Phoenix Indian School Visitor Center. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Stark. Valenzuela.
Yes.
Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Next item is item 58, I'm sorry?
Yes.
58 is next?
Mayor, I have a conflict with item 58.
Move approval.
There's a motion and a second, noting the Vice Mayor's conflict. She will not be participating in today's vote. Diane Barker, do you have testimony on the IGA with Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community for the Rio Salado Oeste project? Good to see you.
Well, okay, thank you, Mayor and Council. I very much approve of this and support it. I got to speak with City Manager Ed Zerker, and what I view as this is it's got to be the dream that is shining in a little way through. This is free. The city doesn't have to pay for the IGA, the Salt River Indian Community at 67th Avenue along this restoration is paying for a channeling which is going to control the flood, Ed. And they talk about how that there are houses, there are residential around there. Now this project extends from 19th Avenue clear out to 83rd Avenue. It's the Rio Salado. People that know about South Phoenix, you know it's been pretty dry down there and so forth. They could do amazing things with this, so I so much am happy to hear about this down the road. There apparently is more of a chance where the city could participate with the Corps of Engineers in development, and the city did make an agreement back in 2001 on 159 acres of this. I think that this is something we've got to hold on to and embrace, and if this could flourish South Phoenix, fantastic.
Thank you so much. All right, there's a motion in favor. There's a second. Any comments by the council? Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Valenzuela. Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Next item is item number 59. Is there a motion on 59, IGA with ASU for Downtown Phoenix Entrepreneurship and Innovation Programs?
Move.
Vice Mayor.
Move item 59.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. There's one card in opposition. Mr. Ryan Boyd, you provide testimony for this council.
All right. Good afternoon, Council. My name is Ryan Boyd. I am a resident here at Evans Churchill for 4 years and a new member of the Downtown Voices Coalition. I am speaking personally in opposition to this primarily because of the use of the Downtown Community Reinvestment Fund after last year, in which our Downtown Voices Coalition had expressed some concerns with the usage of that fund being less transparent than it could be. Specifically, I'm not directly opposed to ASU E&I and the CEDD. They've done great jobs. They're helping us out with building up a downtown that we can be proud of. However, there are a lot of concerns that we expressed about the use of the Downtown Community Reinvestment Fund being concentrated in larger institutions, such as my alma mater, ASU, when there are a lot of other projects that could also be funded to build up the streetscape, to build up a vibrant downtown Phoenix, and to really make the most use of these monies that, to my understanding, which could be flawed since I only have what I heard from about a year of these meetings, has been to come from some of these GPLIT agreements, which themselves are controversial. So ultimately, I just wanted to register that it's a decent project, but we need to have more transparency for this fund, especially as we're talking about using public monies in such a fashion. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boyd. Mr. Manager, maybe we can address that issue. How are the decisions, obviously, makes the final decision in an open public meeting, but that's still a fair question about how recommendations are made as to the support for the reinvestment fund. I want to make sure I understand your position. You're not necessarily opposing this particular project, this partnership with Arizona State University, but in general, you want to know better how the decisions are, or at least how the recommendations are made for use of the fund.
Mr. Mayor, that is generally correct. I don't have the information on how the rest of it's used. The information I have for how the rest of this fund is used after trying to scour the city's websites, including CEDD, was just from our Downtown Voices Coalition presentation a year ago. And things have changed because that had stuff from the law school, which is now complete. So I don't know how it's being used. I can't make a informed
Do we have
decision.
an answer?
Mayor, members of the council, absolutely. So the Downtown Reinvestment Fund is governed by this council, and it is guided at your public meetings and posted, opportunities are posted on the agenda. The items we've used this for at council's direction is historic preservation of the Van Buren. That was done most recently. We've done streetscape improvements and landscaping improvements on First Street. We have done on Grant Street, the Levine Machine, some historic preservation. We have done other opportunities at the council's direction. Our information we are happy to provide to Downtown Voices. We do have their request. We've been working through that and are happy to be as transparent as possible and provide that information to them.
All right, thank you very much. Sounds like you just bought yourself a spot on the next agenda for Downtown Voices. Vice Mayor, you had some questions, and I thought others do as well.
My question is, what was the purpose of the Downtown Community Reinvestment Fund? Why was it created, and where do the funds come from?
Mayor, Vice Mayor Pastor, the Downtown Reinvestment Fund was created in the 1990s, and the fund is, the property is, the accounts are funded with activities that happen in downtown Phoenix. So at the time, over the 90s and 2000s, it could have been from property sales that the city owned in downtown Phoenix, and more recently, it is through leases, through rents from our government property lease excise tax. So it allows us to do improvements in the downtown area at the council's direction, funded by private sector money coming into that account that then governed by city council.
Councilor Nowakowski, questions?
Mayor, I want to make very clear that it's not coming out of our general fund, any of the funding for this, right?
Mayor, Councilman Nowakowski, no, not any of it comes out of our general fund.
And seeing that I represent the downtown area, so does Councilmember Gallegos, this fund has really helped out to revitalize the whole downtown area. As you mentioned, all the different programs and future programs. It's that gap money sometimes that individuals need just to fill that gap of the financing to make beautiful projects like the Van Buren and others that we mentioned earlier. So I just really want to thank the city for being visionaries and creating a fund like this to really help out those individuals that want to make our downtown great. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councilor Nowakowski. I think what Mr. pointed out is maybe we can do a better job of updating the public information about what projects have been funded through this and why the recommendations were made. But at the end of the day, it's us that makes this decision. Usually we get a recommendation from our professional staff, but we ultimately make this recommendation after taking in public testimony at a meeting like this. But, you'll obviously have the Downtown Voices meeting, and sounds like we need to update the website, certainly.
Mayor, we'd be happy.
Councilwoman Gagnon.
Thank you. There have been a couple projects on the Roosevelt Row community that were funded with this fund, including one with Kimber Lanning to help her protect the Worth House, and that not officially Downtown Voices, but many of the stakeholders who attend those meetings had really pushed for that. So I hope we are trying to be responsive to what the community is looking for. Those Roosevelt Row projects were projects I was very excited about because people kept challenging the city. How can you, Roosevelt Row is probably one of our top tourism destinations. How can the city do more to protect those great, particularly some of the bungalow properties, older properties? And so this was a tool we were able to use to do that. And just speaking on this particular agenda item, I'm very excited about the work we're going to be doing in partnership with ASU and the department. Had the chance to meet with some of the businesses On the Native American side, who'll be participating in the incubator, and I'm glad we're doing more investments in the circular economy. Sustainable businesses have been part of our brand here in Phoenix, and we're continuing to make investments so that we'll be a leader going forward. So some good news in this agenda item.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments by members of our council? Vice Mayor.
One of the questions is, how do you apply for these funds? Or what's the process?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, it's in many different ways. So we don't have an application process where people would come to us and say, here's an application, these are the things we want to do. Instead, they're typically brought from the community through a council office. They're brought up to us at the Downtown Voices. They're brought to us at the downtown neighborhood meetings or Roosevelt Row, or through our historic preservation office, through our streets transportation office, where they're working towards a solution of something that's in downtown. And as Councilman Nowakowski said, there's a gap, and they request that funding to be utilized for us to bring it forward to this council for consideration.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments or questions? Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Stark. Valenzuela. Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor. Mayor Stanton.
Yes, that item passes unanimously. Next item on our agenda is item 62. Item 62 is Homeland Security Grant Program Fund.
62,
There's
sorry.
a motion. Is there a second? There's a second. Mr. Leonard Clark, testimony on Homeland Security grants.
Hello, Mayor and council members. Wow, this megaphone's really loud. Don't give me a loud megaphone. Because, tune it down a little. All right. I know that you are all conscientiously, we all want to fight terrorism. I get that. And I know you're all going to vote unanimously on this. I'm not even going to lie. If I was sitting up there, which thank God I'm not, because, anyways, if I was sitting up there, you'd be called, somebody who's not protecting the defense of Phoenix or America. My point is, this is to approve up to $5.5 million, from the Arizona Department of Homeland Security, who Governor Doug Ducey, he works with Trump. He got this funding. And I'm like you. We're all worried about terrorism. We want to protect our citizens. I'm just concerned in this day and age that this is not what George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Monroe, any of them envisioned. Now, of course, we are living in modern times, but I would just like this money to be more accountable. I am worried, and this is nothing against law enforcement, and I'm not anti-police because officers put their lives on the line. I'm just for, accountability, just like I'm held to account, but I'm concerned that all this money we get from Homeland Security, I see Homeland Security vehicles driving around the center of Phoenix all the time. That's all that has on it. That our Fourth Amendment rights, all of this money is being used to turn our police force, along with all of the major cities of the United States of America, into a seamless subsidiary of the federal government's law enforcement. It was never supposed to be like that. And I am a liberal. You know that, and when you take money from Uncle Sam wants something back. He always does, or she does, okay? Let's be politically correct here. But, and I'm sorry to my conservative friends who are grimacing, but, I know you're going to vote for it, but I'm hoping someday in your political careers, this has got to stop. This post-9/11, this undeclared war is killing our own Constitution, which is exactly what the terrorists want. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. There's a motion. There's a second. Any additional comments or questions? Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Stark. Valenzuela.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so that item passes unanimously. Next item is item 79.
Move item 79.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on 79. Greta Rogers, did you have testimony on 79?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is about our bar library, which, with this August 19th headline article, color picture in the Arizona Republic, was unnecessarily closed because of gross negligence by management and council in not doing timely maintenance on the fire suppression system at the library. That is the system that's in the ceiling of all public buildings with little heads that if it's activated in need of fire or excessive heat resource, those pop open and spray retardant in the area. This was neglected for over 2 years. Repair mechanical reports were given and ignored. And now it's going to cost us, the last time I talked to Ed, which was a couple of weeks ago about this, he didn't have all the contracts in, undetermined. But as publicly stated, and I saw him on TV, it could be up as much as $12 million. That's a guess in the dark. This can never happen again in a public building in this city that people go into and out of every single day that it is open to the public. You have a moral and ethical obligation to this city, both management and council, to make sure that all reports given to you about maintenance and or repair of public buildings are effected and done on time and paid for as agreed to in the contract. We have books that were lost in this that will never be replaced. Volumes. Why? Because they are out of print. That's the greatest asset of a library, is the printed material. You just screwed us. And I'm sick and tired of it, of playing like you have a little comfortable cat and mouse game here. You have grave responsibility to the citizens of this city, and don't you ever forget it. I don't ever want to hear or read about anything like this again, and I want a full report on this no later than the second meeting of November. All the gory details. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Rogers, for that testimony. So there's a motion in favor of 79. There is a second. Any comments by members of this council or questions? Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski. Stark. Valenzuela. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so that item passes unanimously. Next item is item 87. Is there a motion on 87?
Move
Mayor-
item 87. Oh, sorry.
I'd like to declare a potential conflict on items 87 and 88, which you could move together.
Thank you. Is there a motion on 87 and 88?
Motion.
Go ahead, second.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve 87 and 88. We have a second. Noting Councilwoman Gallego's conflict, she will not be participating in that vote. Are there any cards on that item? Are there any comments or questions by members of this council? Vice Mayor.
I have questions. This is 35th Avenue and Baseline. I don't know who I ask questions to.
All right, our planning director is coming, Mr. Stevenson.
In building out 35th Avenue and Baseline, and as we built out south, further south to the mountain, there has been several, or at least I know of 2, possibly 3 incidents. And Alan, I know you probably, it's probably more transportation or infrastructure in that area. In that area, there has been flooding and flooding of homes in that area. With the park being built, there are berms that were built up that also causes flooding, forces the water into the flooding area, into the homes. So I just want to get some clarity on this item.
All right, so Ms. Stevenson, can you give us clarity on the item of the final plat for 35th Avenue and Baseline Road, northeast corner?
Mayor, members of council, this item is just a plat that has gone through the review process. It conforms with the zoning requirements. It's already been through extensive public hearing process related to the zoning for this particular parcel in the past. It conforms with zoning approval. As part of the plat review process, they do have to submit their grading and drainage plans to look at any civil issues related to flooding. So that is happening concurrently with the plat review. And once the plat is approved, any of the off-site bonding improvements they would have to make to deal with off-site drainage issues or off-site street improvements, they will be putting up bonds to do those improvements as part of this plat. This is what a plat does is it's the last legal instrument so a developer can go out and start constructing on the site and then be able to sell those lots.
Okay, got it.
Thank you very much. Any additional comments or questions by members of this council? So the motion in favor of 87 or 88 and a second. Roll call.
Nowakowski. Stark. Valenzuela. Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yeah.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, the item passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda are the planning and zoning items 93 and 94. And these are concerning the southeast corner of Central Avenue and Jefferson, as well as 41 East Jefferson Street. Our professional staff has recommended that they provide a staff report singularly for both items. So we'll talk about both 93 and 94, but then we will have separate hearings on 93 and 94. Are you suggesting that we, after the public hearing, we take an individual vote on 93, then public hearing on 94, and then a vote on 94? Was that your suggestion, Mr. Stevenson?
Mayor, members of council, yes, so that we would be able to provide, I think, a good basis and a context with a staff presentation, and then the council could take up each of the individual items at that time.
So we'll hear a staff presentation on both 93 and 94. Then I'll do a public hearing on item 93. During that public hearing, again, I think this may have been worked out in advance, so I appreciate that. We'll give up to 6 minutes, excuse me, 5 minutes, I apologize, for the applicant owner, 5 minutes for the appellant, 2 minutes for all other interested parties. Obviously, the opportunity for questions by members of this council if there's any additional rebuttal needed. And then we'll see if there's a motion and a second, and then we'll take a vote, and then we'll do a public hearing on item number 94. Also, 5 minutes for the applicant owner, 5 minutes for the appellant, 2 minutes for each other individuals who are here in interest on that case. Does anyone on the council disagree with that approach? These are sort of companion cases, and I think that's what the staff wanted, was to provide a single hearing to provide the larger context. So with that, I'll now hand it over to Mr. Stevenson, our planning director, to provide staff report on items 93 and 94.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I do have Ms. Sandy Hoffman and Mr. Christopher DePero here with me to answer any questions as we undertake these two items. Item 93 is a request to abandon a alley that is shown up on the slides here in red. It's this alley right here. The related case is a request to abandon a public utility easement for a parcel here in yellow known as the Garrettson parcel. The red parcel you have heard about in the past. This is part of the Barrister RFP that was released, so there's been some extensive discussions about that parcel in the past. These two items do come to you on appeal. Most of the time when council hears these abandonment decisions, they're on for ratification. They're not public hearing items. The unique thing about them today is that they were both appealed, and that's why you are hearing them as public hearing items to have some discussion on them. This next image just shows a picture of the alley on Central Avenue. Here you're looking east. The Barrister Building is in the foreground. Off in the background, you see the surface parking lot for the Garrettson parcel, and then further off, you see the arena. This is a similar view. This one's taken from First Street, and here you're looking west down that public utility easement area where that alley was abandoned back in 1999 through a public hearing process and a council action. So the only thing that exists today is a public utility easement. On the top, the property owner has been using that for parking since that time, and that's what this exhibit shows you. Focusing on item 93 right here, this is a request to abandon that 200-foot section of alley that goes from Central Avenue to the east. Obviously, it is between Jefferson to the north and the light rail line, Madison to the south, and then Central and First Street over here. This is the proposed Barrister redevelopment project. This is their potential rendering as part of the RFP. You see as part of this, they are adaptively reusing the Barrister Building shown here in the foreground. They do have ground floor retail and restaurant uses. This is parking that's in a structure right here that will provide the parking for the for sale ownership condominium units that will take up the bulk of the area in the Barrister Building, as well as the rest of this tower here as well will all be residential. Further off in the background, you do see some, which is two-story kind of walk-up townhouse brownstone development on the southern edge of that parcel. This is just another rendering to show what they're proposing here. The intensity and scale of development as it relates to the south side of downtown will be very significant. This is a rendering that shows the potential alley area here, so you can see this is from Central Avenue. Looking forward, again, Barrister is right here in this foreground. You're looking to the east here with the building going over the top. The applicant's proposing that the pillars that will hold up the parking structure and the rest of the building would be built in this alley area if abandoned. It would provide access into some surface parking that is necessary to provide service for the ground floor retail. The alley abandonment hearing officer did vote to approve this request, subject to stipulation. It does comply with the intent of the downtown alley abandonment criteria adopted by City Council. It also provides some flexibility related to access issues within this block. During the alley abandonment hearing officer process, the property owner's attorney for the Garrettson parcel did object to the loss of that alley because that does provide potential access today and for ingress and egress as the commercial parking happens on that parcel. And so they were in objection to that, but one of the key stipulations that the staff added, or the hearing officer added as part of his decision, was to ensure that a new driveway be added on Madison on the Garrettson parcel at the expense of the Barrister parcel to ensure that there was another access point other than just First Street as it went forward. This request was appealed by Mr. Sweat with the Urban Phoenix project. He asserts that there's non-compliance with the downtown alley criteria and also that it's not in concert with the RFP. One of the things that staff wants to really point out related to the downtown alley criteria is that in order for that criteria to be effective and evaluated, you have to have a complete alley. And in this case, the alley was abandoned in 1999, and therefore you can't have a full alley that would take the back of house items that alley is supposed to as part of that downtown alley criteria. The hearing officer went through and delineated a number of reasons why it meets the downtown criteria that I'm happy to provide more information if the council wants, but we believe it does meet that, and it's principally because the alley was already abandoned in 1999, which was prior to the adoption of the downtown code and prior to the downtown alley criteria being adopted. In terms of the RFP for the Barrister site, The Community Economic Development Department reports that they had always shown a building over the alley being built in some fashion. It just wasn't clear whether or not that was going to be done as part of an alley abandonment or part of a license to use air rights. It would have been premature as part of an RFP process and awarding an RFP for the council to make any decision or determination based upon the alley. That's a separate legislative act, and that's what's before you today. Focusing on item 94, this is the request to abandon the public utility easement. Again, the alley was already abandoned in 1999 through a public hearing process, so this is only about the utilities that sit underneath in that area in yellow today. Otherwise, it's a surface parking lot that is used by the property owner. In this case, the hearing officer did find that there are two existing utilities in there, a sewer line and electrical lines, and that's the only subsurface use of that parcel today. Again, the surface was abandoned to the public via that 1999 action, and so that's parking up there today. The utilities, as part of this process, did not object to removing or relocating any of the utilities that are in there. So staff did add as a stipulation that if this utility easement is abandoned, that they would have to dedicate a new public utility easement on the edge of the Garrettson parcel to relocate any of the public utilities that could currently go down the alley area around the Garrettson parcel to allow for that to redevelop. And that does come with a automatic abandonment of that additional PUE within 2 years if it's not utilized. The reason it provides that flexibility is because the Barrister Project could elect to put their utilities in the public rights-of-way in Madison and First and go around and not use that site. So that was why the hearing officer added that flexibility. In this case, this particular application was appealed by the attorney representing the Jefferson Place Barrister Partners project. They have concerns about the abandonment of the relocation will affect their viability of their particular project because it increases potentially costs and unknown factors related to timing that impact the development proposal going forward. There's also some concerns about the size of the relocated PUE being too small. The PUE is, as stipulated, is a 16-foot, which is the typical city size. However, the existing PUE that's there today is a 25-foot wide one, just for the record. In terms of the other utility issues, it will be, in fact, change some of the location of that PUE in some fashion if the Garrettson PUE is approved. But it will be something that has to be worked out by those two property owners as they seek to develop that site, exactly where that PUE would be and how it would function on the site between them. With that, staff is happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much for that thorough presentation on 93 and 94. I think, well, are there any immediate questions for staff now? Obviously, at the end of the public hearing, council members have a chance either to make a motion and then see if there's a second, and then also obviously to ask questions. But if there are questions now, I'll turn to members of the council. Any questions, Mr. Stevenson? Vice Mayor?
I think the map. Okay. So I guess my question, and I don't know if it's in this one, see where it says alley, and then see like that red box and then the gold box. There's a middle parcel in between there that is on Madison. Who owns that?
It's an out parcel, so this area here is not party to this application at all. That is owned by a person named Ann Fabric, and she has submitted a letter that is in support of the abandonment of the Barrister Alley right here.
Okay. And in the letter of support, she understands, I guess I want to get clarity because I got the letter, but I haven't had to, I read it quickly and didn't dissect it in a way I normally do. That she understands that as we go through this process, and if this, we vote on this, that this is all going to be affected, she's going to be affected by this.
So, Mayor, Vice Mayor, in this particular instance, I think her parcel is able to have access down here, and so if that alley is abandoned, her parcel will still have that same access to the south. You know, if they're, as part of this alley abandonment, because this is part of the downtown original town site, it does not go back to the adjoining property owners. It goes to the city because the city got it at the time of creation of the town site of Phoenix, and through that, the city then licenses someone to use that alley space. And in this case, it would be entered into an agreement with the Barrister developer to use that alley.
So she'll have to go into agreement with Barrister to be able to use the alley if this moves forward or if this is agreed upon.
She would have to either come in and talk to the city about it. She has not objected, has not shown up at any of the hearings, and my understanding with this letter provided by the applicant is supportive of it. So I don't believe she has any concerns about that. We're happy to sit down and talk with her, you know, subsequent to whatever the council does, if that's what the council directs.
Right, because we talk about two people, but there's really three people involved in all of this, and that's why I want it on the record to understand that there are three people that are affected by this. It's not just two. The other piece is that this is a dynamic because it could eventually mean whatever the future looks like, certain costs to her. So I just want it on the record. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. Any questions for Mr. Stevenson or our team at this time? Okay, so now we'll move on. Oh, Councilman Stark, I apologize.
And I'm sorry. How's this abandonment going to impact, we're starting light rail, not immediately, but light rail construction will be going south on Central. Will there be, when you reviewed this, did you guys look into that? I'm sure you did, but I just want to understand.
Yes, Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, staff did look into that as part of this. That is one of the reasons why there's additional access down to Madison as part of the developer's project, is to have additional access points into the new project off Madison, because just the one on Central Avenue being a street that will have light rail in the future on it, we are minimizing impacts to that particular street from vehicle traffic.
And just as a follow-up, and maybe this is actually a question for the applicant, has there been discussion about their construction timetable versus what may happen with light rail, and how are they coordinating their utilities with light rail? Because I know when light rail comes in, sometimes we have to alter existing utilities within the streets, so.
Mayor and Councilwoman Stark, there has been a number of discussions, even related to how that building is built and what happens at the intersection, because it is a tight section with two historic buildings there. So as the light rail comes through there, there's not a lot of room. The applicant, as part of their development proposal, is proposing a drop-off point along Central Avenue there, and a valet area where people can get off and get out of their cars as well. And so there has been some extensive discussion about that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any additional questions at this time? All right, so we're going to go ahead and open up the public hearing first for item 93, which is concerning the alley and the Barrister site. So that public hearing is now open. Per the recommendation of our planning director, we are going to give the applicant 5 minutes, the appellant 5 minutes, and then 2 minutes to all others who are here in interest. I didn't have a card for the applicant, but I know, Mr. Wood, you're representing the applicant?
Yes, Mayor.
So I guess you'll have up to 5 minutes to present, and obviously, during the course of that, would you also address the question from Councilwoman Stark as it relates to light rail coordination and construction. Mr. Wood.
Yes, Mayor and members of the council, my name is Nick Woodham with the law firm of Snell and Wilmer. My address is 1 Arizona Center, and I represent John Graham and Jeff Beer, who are both here. In September of 2015, a little over 2 years ago, both John and Jeff responded to the RFP that was issued by the city. They were subsequently chosen as a successful respondent. We entered into negotiations with the city for a purchase agreement and development agreement. They were successful. It was ultimately approved by the council. The disposition or purchase agreement and development agreement included several provisions, including this abandonment that we're discussing today, as well as site plan approvals, et cetera. It was anticipated that those would be completed before the sale would occur and before my client actually purchased the property. We were asked to accelerate that process and to close it early, which they did, which is why standing here today, they already own the property, although the abandonment and the site planning still has not been completed. Here's some older pictures of the building, and of course here's the building today and the alleyway. Alan just showed you these renderings. The idea is to build a 32-story condo project, and the Barrister building will be converted to condominiums. It's gone from being a hotel originally to an office building, and now it's going to be condos, so it's kind of run the gamut of different uses. The tower will have 192 condominium units, and the Barrister building will have 19 condominium units. First floor, there will be a fine dining, white tablecloth restaurant, as well as retail all the way around both buildings. Here's a couple of other elevations, and you can see here, this is where the pool is on top of the parking garage, and of course that extends over what is now the alley. And here's just, I wish I could afford one of these penthouses because the views are going to be rather incredible. Again, here is the property that was acquired from the city, the two parcels on either side of what is now the alley. There's been a number of abandonments over the years. One is here at the Lures Project. I was lucky enough to represent the Hanji family when we did that abandonment, and although that was abandoned, the alley remains open for several reasons. Number one, the Lures uses it. Number two, there's a PUE that runs down the middle of it. Then, of course, in 1999, Mr. Garrettson applied for and received approval from the City Council at that time for the abandonment of that portion of the alley. Of course, then the alley was abandoned east. So this is really the last remnant piece of alleyway that used to run east-west through all of these blocks. Here's a little bit closer view. Now, one of the things that we did is we visited with a number of people. I mean, you all know me. I'm all about reaching out and speaking to everybody and anybody who has an interest, no matter how significant or even remote. So we met with Downtown Voices. We did a presentation to them on a Saturday morning. Preserve Phoenix, Downtown Neighborhood Alliance, Downtown Phoenix, Inc. We actually even met with two of the RFP panelists to kind of get their perspective and their viewpoint on this project. We met with Urban Phoenix Project, Alley Activation Committee, which is Jeff Sherman, Local First Arizona, Kimber was also very supportive, and Phoenix Community Alliance. But we also spent a lot of time with Mr. Garrettson and his lawyers, and we also spent time with the lawyer representing Mrs. Fabric. Ed Lowry, some of you may know him. He's been a lawyer for a long time in the Valley. He's a former mayor of the town of Paradise Valley. Before I was engaged, Jeff Beer and John Graham met with him to talk about Mrs. Fabric's parcel, which is how they generated that letter of support. We met with Ed Lowry again just a couple months ago to bring him up to speed on our application and the new design and everything else, and they remain supportive of this project. We've also agreed to keep that area open. So, Vice Mayor, your question about the impacts was a good one, and because it's such a small parcel and so few spaces, it won't interfere with our operations. But during our discussions with Mr. Garrettson, and again, I have a great deal of respect for Mr. Garrettson, I think we had very constructive discussions. In fact, we even had a form of a mediation. The Garrettsons came into the city, as did we. Alan was there, as was Chris Mackey, and we talked about it. And Mr. Garrettson's request, understandably, was, I'd like to have access over the alley because I use it today. We asked for corresponding access over his portion of the alley, and the answer was no. With all due respect, he said no, and that's okay. So we were unable to arrive in an agreement with Mr. Garrettson, although he did not file the appeal. I'm sure he still is opposed to this. With respect to the site plan itself, I want to go back here. This is our front door, our back door. The only way in and out is through this alley. We're surrounded on two sides by the light rail, and this is our main way in and out. If you want to come into any of the retail, you have to come through here. Whether you talk about Uber, Lyft, valet is going to probably end up here. You know, we're trying to put a valet stop here, but it's just not going to work because it's just not big enough. For example, when you look at the sidewalk here, it's just, if you put a cut in right there, there's just no sidewalk left. So basically, we have to have that, I'm going the wrong way. We have to have that area to be private so we can control it. Because of course, you know, if we can't control it, there's a potential for mischief and other things. So the bottom line is, you know, as you can see here, the building, there's pillars that are actually in what is now the alley. You have different traffic patterns that go through. So again, for safety purposes and otherwise, we need to be able to control it, not have it open to the public. With respect to the appeal, I just want to point out a quote from Mr. Sweat, who's the appellant that was in the New Times, and you know, he said that the reason that he wants these alleys opened is so that the alley, that stuff, use the word stuff, like electrical transformers, dumpsters get placed there and not on the street. That in turn makes getting around on foot more appealing, etc. Well, as you can see, we can't have this kind of thing happening on our project. We have to have something that looks really, really nice and control. We can't have dumpsters in it, etc. So I think I was a little bit over time, Mayor, and I apologize, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wood. Any questions for Mr. Wood at this time? Obviously, you'll be here to answer questions as they come up. I did indicate that the next speaker would be the appellant. I believe the actual appellant is Mr. Sweat. Is that accurate? Although I do know Mr. Ailman's here, and I think Mr. Ailman's representing the nearby property. Is that correct? Okay. So, Mr. Sweat, as the appellant, you have up to 5 minutes to provide testimony. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for hearing our appeal. In 2015, the Planning Department kicked off a working group. Mr. Wood alluded to that, the alley activation group. One of those things, among others, was to develop alley abandonment criteria. That working group included representatives from the neighborhoods, representatives from the business community, and city staffers from multiple departments, planning, works, and I believe streets also participated. The staff and the working group over almost a year developed alley abandonment criteria that a council subcommittee then approved in 2016. Those evaluation criteria had 5 elements. However, when the hearing officer granted the abandonment last month, he did so despite the abandonment actually violating 3 of those criteria. I know the presentation I heard earlier said that all the criteria were met, but they weren't, and I can explain that, and it's been reinforced with some of the things that have actually been said today. So the first of those violated criteria was that no trash or utilities should be serviced from the street. They should all be internal to the site. We just heard Mr. Wood say that the project's desire was to not have the trash internal to the site because of how it would look. The problem is that's exactly what alleys are for, is to have the utilitarian access off the street internal to the site. So that was one violation of the criteria. A second was that the abandonments should only occur if they result in fewer driveways. This is actually also code. It's 1207.k. And in the findings of fact from the abandonment officer, it was actually expressly stated that there would be more driveway cuts, but that he thought it didn't matter. And then the last violated criteria was that it wouldn't reduce the development viability of other parcels on the block. And Vice Mayor Pastor already asked a question about Ms. Fabric's parcel and it came to light that there would be no more back of house access essentially. So their back of house, their trash, and any vehicular access would now have to be through the front door on Madison. So those 3 criteria are not met, 3 of the 5. Obviously, we believe that this should be, that our appeal should be supported because it doesn't meet those 5 criteria. It doesn't even meet 4 of them. It doesn't even meet 3 of them. It only meets 2. But beyond this particular project, we also have concerns that if the abandonment is allowed to go forward, it'll set a precedent throughout the rest of downtown that the criteria don't matter. Because if this abandonment can be approved with only 2 of 5 criteria, and they're supposed to be and criteria, not or criteria, with only 2 of 5 of them applying, then what does that tell anyone in future projects? It tells them that these abandonment criteria are meaningless and that they're toothless. And so we're concerned about the precedent that it could set if our appeal is not supported. And finally, I just want to raise the issue of the RFP itself, because in an RFP, the city's plans and ordinances are supposed to be adhered to. And as I mentioned very explicitly, 1207.K, which is also one of the alley abandonment criteria, which says that alley abandonments should only be approved when they result in fewer driveways along pedestrian streets, and both Central and Madison are pedestrian streets. That's the requirement. And so this does not, and the hearing officer actually said so in his findings of fact, this does not result in fewer driveways. And so the concern is that, well, let me just contextualize it real quickly with a broader picture of downtown development, because in fact nearly every residential project downtown recently has not abandoned their alleys. And they've not required any variances or other exceptions from the ordinance. This includes Linear on Roosevelt, Illuminate on Roosevelt, the Derby on 2nd Street, the Circles building on Central. There are other issues notwithstanding. The Union on Roosevelt and the Link on 3rd Street, which just had a groundbreaking yesterday. And that's exciting. Those developments have been adhering to the code. They've been keeping their alleys. They're building urban projects. If these private projects can adhere to city plans and ordinance and maintain their alleys, so too should a project that's awarded a city RFP and stands to receive millions of public dollars. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. And projects that are awarded RFPs should also be held to higher standards, not lower standards. They shouldn't be given extra leniency because they won an RFP. They should be held to a higher standard because this is a project that the city is explicitly asking for and explicitly putting out to market. So that being said, we think the RFP process and maintaining the integrity of that is also a reason to support our appeal. So thank you.
Thank you very much for the thoughtful testimony, Mr. Sweat. I'll now turn to other members of the community who want to provide testimony, but Mr. Stevenson, you did go through earlier in your presentation to the council why you thought the criteria was met in this one. I'm not going to ask you to do it now, but I will be asking you later to maybe review that because obviously there's a polite disagreement about the criteria and the application of it to this particular case. So I'll have the opportunity later on to kind of go through that again for the benefit of this council and the public. How about Mr. Sean Ailman, who's representing the next door property? Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Mayor, council members. Shane Allman with Tiffany and Bosco, 2525 East Camelback, Phoenix, Arizona 85018. Here representing Mr. Garrettson's property, which is just west of the Barrister site here, and I'm gonna save most of my material to share with the next item because we've been appealed on that item for the PUE abandonment. But what I do want to put on record is that from the beginning, Mr. Garrettson has not necessarily been opposed to the alley abandonment, and he's not opposed to it at this point. We first showed up at the neighborhood meeting back in June to represent a couple of very important rights and interests of Mr. Garrettson. One was the access coming out onto Central Avenue, and also for the utilities. to be able to have the opportunity to build a mixed use or some sort of development project upon the block without having it broken up with the utilities there. As been said today, there's really only 2 utilities in the PUE at this point. It's electrical facilities and also the gas facilities or the sewer facilities. And we're not opposed to that. You know, the whole reason why we filed for the PUE abandonment was on reliance on some discussions that we had since the neighborhood meeting. We had another meeting with the Barrister folks in July. We had another meeting with city staff in August. And after the meeting in August, there was a feeling that the Barrister folks would work with us on the PUE and work with us on the utilities. And really, in that first meeting that we had, that neighborhood meeting, they said, you know what, if you want access onto Central Avenue, no problem, we'll work with you on that. If you want the electrical facilities to not go through your property and have that opened up, no problem, we'll work with you. So to have our PUE abandonment was kind of a bait and switch, we feel, that happened here. And so we're kind of a little bit perplexed why there was a PUE abandonment given, or PUE abandonment appeal posted when we had these further discussions. So I just want to put on record that we're not necessarily opposed to it, but we feel it's important that staff really looked at both of these applications at the same time, and the outcome of both of those came out on the same day. And when they looked at both of them, they gave us some things and they gave the Barrister property some things. And we felt it was a very balanced solution that they came out with those. So if one gets approved and one doesn't, then the scales are tipped in the favor of one, and you're in a sense, you know, selecting who has the favor on this property, and we really don't think that that's fair. So we would request that if one's going to get approved, that we go forward with the other one getting approved as well. So thank you.
Are there very much for the testimony? Are there any questions for Mr. Ailman? And Councilman Stark, but Mr. Ailman, you come back to the microphone. I think there might be some questions. And you know, obviously these are somewhat companion cases, so the questions may be of a nature that would, you know, be more directly to 94, but they're relevant to 93, so probably ask them now. But the obvious difference is, with regard to the Barrister project, we have a project. We know exactly what we're talking about, and so, you know, and so with the Garrettson, there is no project. What is Mr. Garrettson's intent with his property at this time, or is it just to market it? Because normally I could tell you, I mean, I would not. I want to see what the project's going to be before I make an important decision about the PUE abandonment. I don't want to tip my hand on the next case, but at the same time, I want to be honest with you, as it may affect your position, your client's position on the Barrister case. But give us a project, and I might file differently. Please.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council. Yeah, there is no specific project right now, but as we know, it is zoned with the downtown code, which allows for a variety of different types of different developments, and there has been discussions with all types of users on there. And when we look at the PUE abandonment, one of the reasons why we move forward, this is one of the first dominoes that needs to go down before we can really start having other specific discussions with potential users, with potential developers on the site. If you have the PUE in place, it really creates uncertainty as far as that block being broken up. And so the reason that we're asking for that PUE abandonment is to provide for some flexibility for the future of the use. I mean, it's been a parking lot, we know that, since 1969. But there is a desire to develop that in the future. And I understand we don't have a specific plan, but the PUE, if the PUE is not, abandonment is not approved, then it really breaks up the block and provides some sort of, it doesn't provide the flexibility that we need to go after different developers or different people that could develop on the site.
Okay, I appreciate that. I might also politely suggest, though, that would give away significant leverage that we may have to utilize on behalf of the community to make sure we get a quality project that parcel and that high-profile location right in the heart of our downtown, right next to our arena, one of the most high-profile locations, that we get a project that the community really would get behind. And, you know, why would we give that up? And so I might politely suggest, I would frame it a little differently. It would be unfair to you if you weren't to be successful today. Rather, the timing may not be right. It may not be right for a decision on that, and you could still market this project. This is a hot corner in a very hot marketplace, and you bring us a great project. My own opinion may change. Councilman Stark, you had a question or comment?
Actually, Mayor, you stole my thunder. I was going to ask the same question. Again, we have a project before us in the Barrister, and we do not have one on your client's property. And even if we abandon the PUE, anyone that you're marketing to would still have to relocate the utilities. So I'm not quite sure if it's appropriate right now to seek something when we don't have a plan before us. But
All right, that's obviously the next case, but obviously they're so closely related. I kind of, at least how I was thinking about that project. I don't know if you want to, in fairness, I want to give you a chance to respond to it, of course.
Yeah, Mayor and members of council, I think we would still assert that having the PUE abandoned now provides the flexibility. If we have a PUE there, what could happen, what will likely happen, is that the electrical facilities are there, the sewer facilities are there, but there's a potential for anyone to come and put their utilities within that PUE. And at that point, if utilities are expanded beyond what's existing there right now, I mean, if we just have to deal with electrical facilities, I think we could work around that. But now you're opening it or allowing it to have all kinds of telecommunication, gas, sewer, electrical, any type of utility that wants to put their utility in here, it does, and it becomes more of a permanent block or breaking up that block with that. So we're trying to maintain that flexibility for the future to have that block open.
That's a point well taken. My response to that is, hurry up and bring us a great project, and that'll.
We're working on it.
All right,
working on
good.
it.
All right, good. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Ailman? Vice Mayor?
No.
Oh, okay. Further testimony, how about Mr. Jeff Sherman?
Give him expanded time, give him to Mr. Sweat, I'll wait.
Okay, great. How about Dan Clockey from Downtown Phoenix Partnership?
Mayor, members of council, thank you for the time. I just wanted to reiterate, according to the card, that we are against the appeal. I've got a lot of respect for the philosophy behind what they're trying to do in terms of porosity with the block. But I think in this case, depending on how things go with item 94, there literally could be a wall in the middle of this alley someday, so that porosity would go away. And I think what's important is the spirit of the law is being followed here because it's remaining open, and so you're going to see vehicular traffic and so forth, which is one of the main points. The second thing is, as a member of the Historic Preservation Commission, I've got a lot of concern that the Barrister Building continues to sit here and can't move forward. And so it's really important, I think, from the HP community that this building is redeveloped and fixed up as quickly as possible. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Well, don't leave the microphone because I have a question for you. So obviously we have, two of the most thoughtful leaders on downtown development on opposite sides in this case, Sean Sweat, who I think myself and every member of the council respects greatly.
You bet.
You both in your capacity as Downtown Phoenix Partnership, but just as a community leader, one of the most thoughtful leaders on downtown development. The issue has been precedent as it relates to alleys in downtown. If we were to support an abandonment of this particular alley, maybe give us your thoughts on that.
I certainly understand that concern. I think that the hard part about downtown is literally every project can be different. And I know that sounds kind of like a cop-out, like, oh, this one's okay and this one's not, and all that kind of stuff. But I think what's really important here is that the property on the east side is private. It's not public. And so it will be closed at some point, most likely. And so I think that is a little bit different than some of the other blocks where you have alleys that are clearly open. They have not been abandoned. But in general, we agree with the philosophy that they have in terms of leaving alleys open. But this is one of those challenging cases, I think.
All right, thank you very much. Any other questions for Mr. Clockey? All right, I should note, not wishing to speak, but Jennifer Bocek, a leader in the historic preservation community, is not supportive of the abandonment, and for the reason that the pedestrian access via the alley and other locations was an important part of the context of this building when built at the time, and elimination of the alley would harm the historical context in which this building was built, and therefore thinks that we should not be supportive of the alley abandonment. Is anyone else here wishing to provide testimony on item number 93 concerning the proposed abandonment of the alley regarding Barrister Place and the development as a response to the RFP. Going once, going twice. Public hearing on 93 is now closed. I'll now turn to members of the council. If there's any questions, comments, or even a motion on item 93.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion, and then maybe from there we can have
Councilman
discussion.
Alkowski, this is your district, I think?
Correct.
Please.
Mayor, after much conversation and debate and looking at the alley, I mean, we've abandoned the alley on the west side of the banister, and on the east side it's abandoned also. So this is really the last portion of the alley. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the abandonment prior to the hearing officer's discussion.
So the motion is in support of the
Decision.
hearing officer decision.
Right.
Mr. Stevenson, is that an appropriate motion?
Mayor, members of council, I would just say to approve it per the abandonment hearing officer decision, because that has stipulations attached to it, just to be clear.
Councilman, you wanted the stipulations attached?
Yes.
Did the council second want stipulations attached? Okay, so the motion is in favor of the abandonment hearing officer decision. Is there any comments or questions regarding the motion at this time? Vice Mayor.
I have questions.
Please.
Okay. So this is for Woods Partners. Did you include the abandonment as part of the proposal in response to the original RFP?
So Mr. Wood, I don't know if you want to provide testimony or answer to that one.
Or it could be.
Sure,
proceed.
Mayor, Vice Mayor. No, it was not part of the response. What typically happens with an RFP is you don't have enough time to do due diligence. You do that after the fact, and once they got into doing the design, engineering, et cetera, it was determined that the abandonment had to happen. And that's why we put it into the contract with the city, but it was not part of the
Okay,
RFP
so it's in the
response.
contract.
Right.
Okay. My other question is that, is there any way to allow for public access and still retain your loading and your parking functions according to your site plan?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, the alley will not be closed, it won't be locked, there won't be a barrier. If the public wants to, they can come and go. And we have to have first floors, all retail. Again, we'll have Lyft, we'll have Uber, we may even have our valet going in and out. Deliveries will happen as well. So if the public wants to come on, they can. Now, again, it's one of those things where it's like any part of downtown you can walk into and along the streets. Although it won't be a public right-of-way, we will not be barricading it.
Okay. And then I have questions for staff.
Please.
How is Ms. Fabric's property impacted with the alleyway abandonment?
So, pursuant to the aerial you see up here, if the alley is abandoned and council approves that, she will not have access to that alley unless she reaches agreement in the future as part of an agreement with CED and the folks who control the Barrister parcel. Her her existing access to it, because it's a commercial parking lot, is not significantly impacted because she can go in and out of the Madison Street entrance.
I guess where I'm leading to or wanting to know, where will her trash and other items, recycling go? There has to be either agreement with Barrister or it goes on Madison. That's all I can think of.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, what staff is saying is that it can't go there today because it's a dead-end alley. So, part of the challenge that we have to overcome in this is this perception that there's an alley there. There's not an alley that is complete in this picture. So they couldn't go, they don't have any legal right to go into the Barrister property to turn around in the future. They don't have, just like they don't have rights to go onto the Garrettson parcel today and have their trash collection come all the way through. If they had a dumpster and they had a building here, they couldn't go this way anyways. They can only go out this way here. So they wouldn't have any additional detriment because they can't use that today because of this being abandoned.
Okay. And then here's where I kind of have, I have concerns after listening to everything. Why did the hearing officer who originally approved the abandonment not adhere to the criteria set out for him? Because I remember voting on on these criterias, I want to say 6 months ago or a year ago. And if we're creating some criteria and asking the public to participate in some of our pieces that we create and policy that we create, and then we don't adhere to them, this is one of my pet peeves, always been, then why do we do it? And why do we waste people's time? And so that's my question. That's why I'm asking the question.
All right, Mr. Stevenson.
Absolutely.
You can't speak for the hearing officer, but actually you recommended abandonment as well, correct?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, staff doesn't make a recommendation on abandonments because the abandonment hearing officer is a staff person, they make that decision. I can speak to the process that was went through and why it's important to go through and why the council adopts those items as policy guidance, because you have to have some policy flexibility related to specifically how you would apply those in an individual application that comes forward. It's very similar to a general plan or an area plan. It talks about what you strive and what you want to achieve, but you can't evaluate that in a context without site-specific application. You need some flexibility that takes place in that site-specific evaluation. In this case, the criteria that was adopted with the guidance for the hearing officer to consider that. As part of considering that, they have to make findings of whether or not they believe it meets it or doesn't meet it, specifically in the staff report. So as part of their decision, they did provide an evaluation that was in all the backup materials about how it meets each one of the 5 specific criteria. And I just glossed over that, but I can get into each one of those details. But it's important to have these types of processes to try and strive to work towards creating a better city, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we understand that you can't have a one-size-fits-all approach to how things happen. And just because there was a set of criteria, once you look at individual factors, like in this case, a significant factor is that this alley doesn't go through anywhere, and it doesn't go through to the other side. So it doesn't function in the back and holistic back-of-house manner that you would want to see in other alleys. You got handed a copy of a map that looks like this, and I apologize, I don't have a PowerPoint slide for that, but you'll see on there the property is shown here in yellow as alley closure likely. This was a map that was developed and was discussed by Mr. Sweat, Mr. Sherman. They were co-members of the group along with others, part of that downtown committee where we talked about having to have some flexibility. And you look at, it doesn't connect to the east. It doesn't have a larger connection. If you look at some of these other alleys, they really are connecting larger areas where you can have them function truly as an alley, where this one doesn't. It's a remnant one that's left. That's why it was marked as likely for closure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other comments or questions? Councilwoman Stark, please.
Yeah, I think this is probably for Mr. Wood. And your site plan's not up here, but you said you're going to have retail on the first floor off the alley. So are you designing it to accommodate pedestrian activity in what will maybe be a closed alley, maybe not? I know we have to vote, but...
Yes, Mayor, Councilperson Stark, if we can bring that up. Yeah, as you can see, because of the light rail that runs along, and again, these are unique circumstances,
right.
Which is why we do comply with all of the criteria. But because we have light rail on the north side, we have light rail that will be installed along the left of the west. There's no access in and out of the project. So we have first floor retail both on all of the building on the along Jefferson as well as along Central. The only way, if you want to come with a car and park and go to either the restaurants or the rest of the retail, you have to come in underneath this parking area and park in those parking spaces that you see right here. So what happens is you'll have to come in, because it's one-way north on Central. You'll have to come in, turn right into here. You'll find a parking space here, and then go into whatever. You see doors here for the retail, and then door inside, because, again, some of the restaurant will be here. This is really the only area. So this will be the only area where people can park to go into the retail. In addition, as I mentioned, Lyft, Uber, deliveries, whether it's FedEx or otherwise, UPS, they're all going to have to come through here. So this is the activity center, simply because we just don't have the ability to park or utilize any portion of the street. And then, of course, they're going to have to, I hate to use the expression tag, but they're going to have to be very, very careful coming in and out because of the light rail being there. It could create some potential conflict, which is why we wanted to keep the volume of traffic down, which is why we didn't, with all due respect to Mr. Gerritsen, we didn't want any more traffic coming through here, because that would just increase the potential for an accident.
Other questions? Councilwoman Gallego.
No questions, just had a quick statement. This is in Councilman Nowakowski's district, but my district is quite close by, and I had the opportunity to talk to some of the folks in my warehouse district about the project. They said they were very excited about it. The historic preservation element was important to a lot of people in the warehouse district community, because they also value historic preservation, and they were also glad to see there's going to be real ground floor development. There was a project that was approved by right on Roosevelt, where they talked about doing ground floor restaurants, but then didn't put in a sink, and no restaurant has materialized there. So I'm excited this is going to be real active ground floor restaurants that will be plumbed and ready for development. And also appreciated when this project went through the first time that they were, the applicants were excited about the light rail and working for a more modern urban site. This is a tough site. If this were a television show, it might be a soap opera, because there's so many different plot lines on this particular site. But I think we've gotten a good solution, and I'm looking forward to supporting Councilman Nowakowski's motion.
Thank you very much. Any other comments by members of this council? All right, I'll just say, obviously, the testimony on both sides is very compelling. Actually, it's a very close case. I take to heart what Sean Sweat did testify to, although I think that the point about this being a precedent, I consider that, but then you went through the list of other ones where the community insisted on the preservation of the alleys, and the city held the line on that, is actually even more compelling. That I think the city generally has done a good job on this, and under the unique criteria here, where you would have an alley that kind of stops halfway, under these circumstances, it does make sense that we should abandon this particular alley for the quality of project that we are getting. So at least for me, I will be supporting the motion, not believing that this creates any kind of a precedent that would be widely used. It's just uniqueness of the circumstances of this case. With that, roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Stark. Valenzuela.
Yes.
Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes, so the motion passes unanimously. Next item is item number 94, which concerns the proposed abandonment of the PUE. I hope I phrased that correctly. We did already receive a staff presentation on that item. So on item number 94, I'll now open the public hearing. I have one card wishing to provide testimony on that item. Mr. Ailman, you should provide additional testimony at this time? This is on item 94. 94. This is Mr. Gerritsen's property. Correct. The abandonment, and you're the only speaker. Okay. Come forward. Now's your time. Great to see you.
I think I have a presentation.
And you'll have, as indicated, up to 5 minutes to provide testimony on this item.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. For the record, Shane Allman, 2525 East Camelback, with Tiffany Bosco, Phoenix, Arizona 85018. Here representing Mr. Gerritsen on the appeal that has occurred on our PUE abandonment. I think it's important to have a little bit of history of what's going on. I alluded to it a little bit in my previous presentation, but I wanted to give you a little context. How do we get to the next slide? Okay, great. Thank you.
We'll do it by hand?
Battery died.
All right, do it by hand. Next slide. Is this slide you want right here?
So we received a letter in June, or Mr. Gerritsen received a letter in June for a neighborhood meeting, and we showed up at that meeting because Mr. Gerritsen has two main interests. One was access out onto Central Avenue. They've had a parking lot there since 1969. The other was the interest having to do with the utilities. Is it frozen? Okay.
Give a second. Sorry about that. We'll give it a second.
On the way.
And timer has paused, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
There we go. Yeah, let's go to that next slide with the orange. There we go. There we go. So this shows the access that the restricted access that has happened over the last several years to Mr. Gerritsen. The areas indicated in orange are the areas that are restricted or either blocked off to Mr. Gerritsen for his parking garage or parking lot that's there. On the north side, of course, that's been blocked by light rail access. On the east and the south, it is restricted because of about 200 days of events there at the Talking Sticks Arena. They have restricted access. And so really the only access that they have that's unfettered is to go through the what is being considered, or what was just approved for the alley abandonment, out onto Central Avenue. And so we had a concern about that, about not being able to get out on Central Avenue. So we brought that concern to them at the neighborhood meeting, and they said, you know what, no problem, we'll work with you on access. And we also discussed the utility portion about the electrical facilities, and they said, no problem, we'll work with you on that. We had a subsequent meeting in July, and those were the same mantras that we would have. We would work with you on access, we would work with you on the electrical facilities there that are existing. When we went to the hearing, they opposed us coming through out onto Central, and said that they did not want us to have access out onto Central. And so this turned into a meeting in August, which we sat down with staff and sat down with the barrister folks to discuss the access and the utility issues. And we met for quite a long time, and we discussed potential options of how we could address this access, how we could address the PUE. If you go to the next slide. We ended up submitting an alley abandonment, or a PUE abandonment for that. The reason for that is because we came out of that meeting saying, you know what, they would work with us on the utilities to be able to abandon them there, so that we could have the full flow, the full block of that development. And then we discussed also having alternative access points out onto Madison Street as part of the alley abandonment, so that we could give up Central Avenue access. So those applications both went through, and they were both reviewed by staff. One of the criteria of a PUE abandonment is that it has to be reviewed by every single utility. And if you go to the next slide, it shows each of the utilities' response to this. So every utility did not have an issue at all with the utilities being abandoned here in the area. And you can see on the most right column that the barrister property, what that shows is that the barrister property has access to all of these utilities, alternative access if the PUE were to be abandoned. Cox, CenturyLink, Southwest Gas, Phoenix Water. Those are all accessed out onto Central Avenue. Phoenix Sewer, there's an existing sewer line. And in fact, the barrister folks said that they wouldn't have a problem if we capped it off and abandoned it in our line and capped it off, they could still use the sewer. The electrical facilities, APS had no issues with those being abandonment. And in fact, if you go to the next letter, we met with APS engineers, or the next slide. They provided a letter, I know it's kind of small, but in that letter they said that we could provide, or we could have a building built on top of the PUE abandonment with the underground electrical facilities as long as we provided alternative routes for them. And Mr. Gerritsen said, I would agree to that. And in fact, I would pay for that to occur. I would pay for those alternative lines to be put in the PUE abandonment for the electrical facilities to be there. So out of that whole review, we get this decision. And if you go to the next slide, this kind of shows the decision. So the blue is our PUE abandonment. The yellow is the alley abandonment. As what was just approved, the alley abandonment, one of the stipulations was to provide an alternative driveway out onto Madison from Gerritsen's property. And we said, you know what, that's not the best solution. We still would like to have full access out onto Central Avenue, but we're okay with having access out onto Madison if we are given conditional approval of the PUE. And we were. And one of the conditions of the PUE abandonment was that there was a temporary PUE that would be established. You can see that blue line. It's a 16-foot temporary PUE that goes down from the alley down to Madison. So even with the PUE being abandoned, they still have alternative access to come through. So they're not completely cut off from having any utilities come to their site. They can have this temporary PUE that's available to them coming from the temporary PUE. So in looking at both of these decisions that were put out from the alley abandonment and the PUE abandonment, we looked at staff viewing these. They looked at them at the same time, and they tried to come up with a balanced solution, balance the scales between our client and between Jefferson Partners' client, and come up with a balanced solution. And we feel they got it right. We gave up something. We gave up access for Central Avenue, and we gave up a little bit of a temporary PUE on the site that goes down onto Madison. So we felt this balanced solution was the right decision by staff. So if we had one decided in favor, we're cut off from our access from Central, and we're not given this opportunity to have our PUE abandoned and have the temporary PUE there, then the scales are tipped. And in a sense, you're choosing a winner here of who comes out on top. And I understand the barrister folks, they have a project, and we don't. But Mr. Gerritsen wants to have a project there in the near future. And he's having lots of discussions with different developers, with different opportunities of what to do there. And we, in this PUE abandonment, is crucial to that discussion, to the type of development that can go here. This is a very important piece, one that is right in the heart of downtown, where we can create a very vibrant mixed-use block on the street. And if we have a block broken up, it just creates a very difficult situation for Gerritsen, and frankly, it's not fair. You know, if the city is choosing to take the abandonment and not the alley abandonment, you know, it's unjustly enriching the Jefferson Partners, and we're now being blocked from our access, where we've already been blocked as it is around the whole property. Now we're sitting with blocked all around, and they've been given the advantage here with having full access out onto Central, having us blocked, and us sitting with them being able to burden our property with all of their utilities. And so it really is an unfair advantage that they have. And we feel like if the PUE abandonment is not upheld, then you're picking a winner here. And Gerritsen becomes the one that becomes the loser in this. And he's the one that takes all of the weight and all of the burden with what happens going forward on the property. And so we really feel that staff got it right. Staff made the decision to look at these in whole together, and they put out a well-balanced solution. And if you decided for one and not for the other, then the scales tip against my client. And we really appreciate you upholding this along with this, and it really creates an opportunity for us to continue to have a discussion with Mr. Beer and his partners, and we want to continue to have those discussions. And in fact, a couple of weeks ago, we tried to reach out to have a discussion about this utility issue, and we were told that if we came and have the discussion, we're going to have to talk about everything. We're going to have to talk about the development of the parcel. We're going to have to talk about if his building is going to block their view corridor out onto First, discuss probably parking arrangements and parking issues, and we're just not at that point to discuss development issues at this point. But they told us that they didn't want to sit down and talk with the utility, and we couldn't talk about the utilities unless we were willing to talk about all these other issues. So with that, we really appreciate you reviewing this. We feel it would be the fair thing to approve both of them going forward so that Mr. Gerritsen can continue to work with the Jefferson Partners and go forward with this. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Mr. Allen, for that good presentation. You have represented your client very, very well. Obviously, I sort of tipped my hand earlier in the earlier case. Maybe go back to that previous slide there. Thank you. And I make sure clear. So your suggestion is that if we don't abandon the PUE utility easement now, we can't do so later when your client does come forward with a proposed project? Are we precluded from doing so if we don't do it now? I'm a little bit confused by that.
Mayor, members of the council, if the PUE goes through right now, it gives the opportunity for anyone to come through and place their utilities outside of what's already there, which is electrical facilities and sewer facilities. And when you have additional utility facilities that are placed on there, it becomes a permanent situation. It becomes something that we can't go and unwind the clock and say, okay, take everything out, whether that's 2 or 10 utilities that have been placed there. And the likelihood is that it could have a lot of utilities placed in that PUE. And if that's the case, it's hard to pull this back and abandon at that point. This is the perfect point to do the abandonment, because you only have 2 utilities in there. Really, it comes down to 1. It's the electrical facilities. The sewer facilities are easy. You plug it up, you cap it off, and the Jefferson Partners have said they don't have any issue with that. The sewer continues on in their alley, and they have access to sewer. The electrical facilities, with the APS solution being able to underground and have our building on top, it's a win-win. Yeah. They still have access to electrical facilities that go underneath the PUE and pop out on their side, and we still have the ability to do it. So if we don't approve the PUE abandonment, it just allows the gate to be open for any utility. And right now we have the ability to focus just on the 2 utilities that are there, and this is the best opportunity to do that.
Mr. Stevens, I guess I could kind of turn to you in the same question I asked Mr. Elman relative to his point. So what, if the PUE remains, what measures would be in place to stop, as he described, sort of unfettered additions to that, utilities be utilizing that easement?
Mayor and members of the council, the utility, if the council does not approve the abandonment request, it would stay in place. Somebody could put additional utilities in there because it's a 25-foot wide utility corridor. That's what it's there for. At the time of development in the future, though, if there's nothing to preclude that property owner from coming back and requesting to abandon the public utility easement again, in which case they could do that, and they would have the common stipulation, which is that's fine if you relocate those and remove them. That's typically what we get from the utilities, but it is at the expense of that property owner to do those things.
Okay, Councilman Stark, please.
Just to note, in the letter from all the utilities, they didn't seem to have a care with it being abandoned. So I don't think they're scurrying to use it in the future, but I could be wrong. I do have a question. When the property that Garrison abandoned as the alleyway, were there any comments? I know we own the barrister, but were there any concerns about that alley being abandoned and having access to First Street? Remember if there was any opposition to that or any concerns?
Mayor, Councilwoman Stark, I don't believe we know that information, but certainly in being approved, there was not any significant concerns that were expressed, else that would have fed into whether or not it was approved, and there would have been some stipulations. There were no stipulations attached to that other than the PUE, so there was no access stipulation. Currently what you just approved with the barrister piece does allow for that property owner to continue to provide alley access in lieu of doing the driveway onto Madison at their discretion, but that way the access is preserved. But when the Garrettson parcel went through the abandonment in 1999, there was no such stipulation placed on the case to require that reciprocal access.
Thank you. I have a question, Mr. Allen. Do you know if your client in any proposed development plans to put additional parking there that would allow it to be a kind of a parking lot for use for patrons of Talking Stick Resort Arena?
Mayor, is the question, have they submitted something?
Well, I mean, what's the intent of your client, if you're willing to disclose that, about, is your client viewing this as a parcel in and of itself, and whatever project would fit on the parcel only for the use of the parcel, or to build additional parking to be made as a revenue source, if you will, for patrons of Talking Stick Resort Arena, as it currently is used as a parking lot for Talking Stick Resort Arena? Yeah,
Mayor, I think that, all uses are on the table. I do know that with the downtown code, there's some restrictions, or there's some, big hurdles that need to be jumped over if a parking structure is put there, or any kind of expanded parking. So we do know that exists, and I think those discussions have happened with planning staff before. But it's open to whatever uses are allowed within the downtown code that's on the property right now.
Any other questions for Mr. Ailman? Okay, the other, Mr. Clockey, you do not wishing to speak. You are in favor of make sure what's your position?
If I may, can I just...
Please, of course.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I apologize. I put in a white card instead of a yellow card. The biggest thing here, in my mind, quite honestly, is that this is representative of a larger issue in downtown. If you ask the good folks at CED, one of the top 3 problems in every single project is, how the heck do I get utilities to my site? And what we've done over time is built some incredible projects throughout downtown, but every single one is a one-off, and it has loaded up the streets more and more and more, and made it more challenging to get power, to get water, to get NRG power, or so forth, to a site. So I would see this almost as an opportunity to take a look at a little bit more broadly a comprehensive infrastructure package for downtown, and how we would do this so we wouldn't have to have these fights continuously, because it really slows down the overall progress of downtown, and we all know these issues are bubbling up. So that would be my one thing that I would just like to bring to the forefront.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clockey. Anyone else wishing to provide? Mr. Wood, did you wish to provide testimony during the public hearing on item number 94?
Yes, Mayor, I'm the appellant.
I apologize.
That's okay, man.
I didn't have a card, but I apologize. Please, as the appellant, you have up to 5 minutes to provide testimony. Please.
Yeah, Mayor and members of the council. Again, Nick Wood, Snell Wilmer. I represent Mr. Graham and Mr. Beer. I don't represent speculators. I've been doing this for over 35 years, and I have never come before you representing a speculator. And what you heard were comments and suggestions and ideas from a speculator, someone who's never actually built anything. If we could bring that slide back up, I want to walk through and explain my comment. And you're right, Mayor, when you said that by holding their feet to the fire to have a quality project, we all know that Mr. Garrettson was proposing to put a huge parking garage right there, and it's not something that my client wants or that anybody else wants. But again, if we could put the one with the temporary PUE, next one, please. I'm talking about Mr. Illiman's slides. He had a slide up there that showed a temporary PUE. Here's the thing, Mayor. When the original abandonment happened on Mr. Garrettson's property, the city did not reserve access right over Mr. Garrettson's property. Again, that was a decision made by council, and we respect it. But one of the things the council did and made a big deal of is we're reserving the PUE. And the reason is we own the Barrister building, and we expect to sell this to a developer, and the developer is going to need that PUE to run all of their utilities. So you reserved it, and it's in the language, and it's very clear and concise. When my client submitted their response to the RFP, their engineers, of course, because again, you have to do some preliminary work. You don't do all your due diligence, but you do preliminary work, especially to determine where your utilities are. And that PUE was there at the time. I think it's the next one talked about a temporary PUE. In any event, so we relied upon that PUE being there when my client responded and when my client closed on the property. Now, you know, you heard Shane say that we had agreed to work with them on a PUE. Yeah, I mean, we agreed to work with them on cross-access. Of course, Mr. Garrettson said, we're not going to give you access. Well, guess what? That's not going to work out. With respect to the PUE, it was, well, we're going to move the PUE, and then you're going to have to pay the extra money it's going to take in order to put your utilities in. And that's where the experience as a true developer comes. When you look at the direct line from here to here, Shane's right? There's right now a very minor APS line that's there, and there's a sewer line that's there. But when you're building a 32-story building with over 200 dwelling units, which is significant in size, your utility demands are significant. The utilities are here. Now, going through the PUE makes sense. That's why it's there. Okay, it's there for public utility purposes, and that's how we run it. So our data lines, our gas line, there's no gas right now at the Barrister building. We need a gas line. We have to run it. We need a larger APS line because there's more electricity demand. And that all goes in here. If, for example, there's this temporary PUE, how do we design around that? I mean, it costs a lot of money. Again, without having a true developer up here at the podium, they don't even understand what it takes to just engineer the location of all of this infrastructure that has to be run to the property. That just engineering itself costs a significant amount of money. And if you grant this request, then all of the utilities have to be run basically down here, across here, and up here. Now, we know that in the street, Energy has a huge pipe. We know that the city has a huge water line, and we don't even know whether these utilities will fit there. But the cost, right, to my client of extending all these utilities around the block because a speculator wants to remove a PUE and he doesn't even have a project to bring to you, right, is prohibitively expensive. My client cannot afford to do both. So our discussions with Mr. Garrettson was, yeah, we'll work with you, but you have to work with us. We cannot incur more than $1 million worth of expenses to run these utilities because you want to basically close your PUE. And the answer was, hey, too bad, it's your nickel. So my suggestion is, Mayor, you hit the nail on the head. When they have a real live developer to come forward, then you look at it, and then you make your decision. But right now, Mr. Garrettson, if you grant this, my client's project doesn't get done because time, right now we're out of time. And the statement made by Alan was, we'll have to work out the location of the new PUE with Mr. Garrettson. We've not been able to agree with Mr. Garrettson on anything. Do you think for a moment in the next week or two or month or months, we're going to agree with Mr. Garrettson on the location of the new PUE? And without the new PUE, we can't bring utilities across where the light rail lines are going to run. I mean, we'll never get it done because light rail is going to start construction while we're under construction. We're going to have conflict enough. So the bottom line is, it is premature to ask for it. The PUE is necessary for this project to go forward. My client, there's not enough room in this budget to pay the extra money, and even if there was, we don't even know where it's going to go. And Mr. Garrettson now holds all the cards. So he talks about an even playing field. It's just the contrary. He now controls the future of our project in his hands because he controls where the PUE goes.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Wood. I appreciate those comments. I do want to make clear, though, you did indicate at the beginning that you do not represent speculators. That may be true, but not all of your clients' projects have actually come to fruition. All right. Anyway, Mr. Ailman, I wanted to give you a chance to respond to something Mr. Wood said, just out of fairness to both sides before we close the public hearing and see if there's a motion. Please. I've been around a long time, yeah.
Well, I will say that just a couple points to note. You know, to say that we know what Garrettson's going to do, he's just going to put a big parking garage there, that's a false statement. You know, again, to put on the record, Garrettson is still, he's keeping his options open and would like to, in the heart of the downtown, have the opportunity to build a block that is conducive and is in compliance with the downtown code, and something that can feed off of what's going on across the street and with what's going on in this whole area. It's an exciting area. We think their project's going to be an exciting project as well that's going to add to ours as well. And what I'll say about the utilities, I will reiterate, it was told us from the beginning that electrical facilities, if we didn't need to have them through our PUE, then that's okay. We'll figure out a solution. And so for them to flip, it's kind of a flip-flop from what we were told at the beginning, that yes, no problem, we won't have to have utilities there, and now we're being fought tooth and nail against that we have to have that PUE. The fact is that all of these utilities, gas, sewer, water, all exist in Central Avenue. And yes, some of those might have to go under Central Avenue, but there's other parts of downtown that does the same thing. And it's right there, it can connect to the project. So to say that, you know, we're not going to have access to utilities without this PUE is just false. They'll have access to it. It's right across the street. They exist now. The electrical facilities, again, they will most likely, Garrettson wants them to exist there, and will pay for the extra line so that he can build on top. So to say that this project won't go forward, I think that's a overstatement of the Barrister project going forward. There are utilities that exist in every single one of them, and to the staff report that we received in review of our PUE abandonment, all of the utilities said no problems, and I think there was a recognition by those utilities that there's no problems because there are utilities that exist in this area, and they do. So happy to take any questions. Appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Any other further questions? All right, that's all the public testimony we have for the public hearing, item 94. Is anyone else here wishing to provide testimony? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is now closed. Councilor Nowakowski, would you like to make a motion on this item, and then see if there's a second, and any comments you might have? Councilman.
You know, I'd like to make a comment before my motion. You know, Mayor, there's not a submitted plan to the city of Phoenix for this parcel, and it's kind of hard for us as a city council to really make a decision on something that we don't know, or something that might be there. It might be a parking garage, it might not be a parking garage, it might be a 22-story building, it might not be. So I'm very concerned about that. I'm also concerned about replacing a 25-foot wide PUE to a 16-foot wide, you know, so we're limiting the space of what we can put in there too. So that concerns me. The other thing is that we're looking at the South Central extension going right down Central Avenue. We're not really sure what we're going to be needing there neither. So limiting the space, I think it's just it's just too early to judge all that. So I think what we really need to do is I'd like to make a motion to deny it, and basically in the future, if you do have a plan, bring it to us, and then we can reconsider it.
So the motion is second. Proper form of the motion?
Mayor, members of council, yes. Just to be clear for the record, it is to deny the entire abandonment request. I believe that's what the councilman wants to do.
Okay, so there's a motion to deny the abandonment in total. There is a second. Any comments by members of this council? Roll call. Oh. Roll call.
Gallego.
Yes.
Nowakowski.
Yes.
Stark. Valenzuela.
Yes.
Waring. Williams.
Yes.
Pastor.
Yes.
Mayor Stanton.
Yes. So the motion Passes 7-0 unanimously by this city council. That completes our business before tonight's city council meeting. There are some additional folks who wish to provide public testimony on citizen comment. Mr. Leonard Clark, would you come forward? Followed by Scott Harris. Mr. Clark, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I am Leonard Clark. The Phoenix for all my friends who are watching this, yourselves and on social media, I'm here because I stand with our Asian American Phoenicians who are deeply concerned about the Chinese Cultural Center. And even though I know you believe you're strictly limited by law as doing something officially, there are things I believe you can do officially and personally, showing political courage to stand against this. So I'm here to stand in solidarity with my friends on that. The second thing I want to bring up is right now the current CEO of Valley Metro is talking about so-called new rules, be respectful on the ride. Look, I ride, I've ridden on the light rail and the buses, but I'm uncomfortable because some of the other media sources are saying that this corporation, Valley Metro, that we help fund here, they are going to implement new rules that are not what they say criminal. In other words, none of these rules are codified. It's like, well, I think you're dirty. I think you're homeless. You've been riding this light rail back and forth. I'm kicking you off. And that's when we get into civil rights violations. That's when we're going to get into trouble. I'm here to serve you constructive notice, or at least I let my friends know, come down to the City of Phoenix Council, even though they will state, and you will state, you have no jurisdiction over Valley Metro. You do hold a large part of the purse string, so I'm asking that you ask this CEO that, not to implement these rules basically based upon how somebody looks. We start getting into the territory. Maybe they've got dark skin. Maybe they're poor white. We don't know, but we don't like the looks of you and the way you're muttering to yourself. People with cognitive disabilities, autistic people, all of these folks could be interpreted by these police who are going to be given more power on transit to kick off the people we shall always have with us, the poor. And so I'm asking you to change that, and I'm also for this petition to come up with an ordinance outlawing putting silencers on weapons in the City of Phoenix. There's no place for that here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leonard Clark. Is Scott Harris still here, please? And then followed by, is Ms. Greta Rogers still here? Was she able to stay? Then how about John Rusnick, if he's here? Mr. Harris, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. The person I needed to talk to walked away, Mr. Waring.
Oh, I don't know if Councilman Waring is still here. Or did he...
It appears he has not fully departed.
Okay, so if you go now, or we can hold, I get another speaker?
I can go now, it's okay.
Okay, please, okay, good.
I'm standing in front of you today asking to work together to change a policy of the City Parks and Recreation Department. As currently, as of this date, scooters are not allowed to ride inside the outdoor skate parks. Now I understand these parks were first built and they were designed for skateboard riders. I also understand that skateboard riders may or may not have helped raise money for these parks, but please keep in mind these were built back in the early 2000s and scooters were not a common thing there. Now we are here in 2017, scooter riders are around the world, not just in Arizona and US, have surpassed the number of skateboard riders. As a former skateboard rider myself, I fell and broke my wrist in June. Since that time, I've taken up scootering with my 8-year-old son. We have great experiences at skate parks. I talk to everybody, skateboard riders, scooter riders, just in general. There's a lot of parents involved. What I'm asking you to do is consider changing the policy that the City of Phoenix has towards scooter riders. I'm asking this because there is no safe place for the kids to ride at this time in the City of Phoenix. Currently, the City of Scottsdale, Peoria, do allow scooter riders in their skate parks, the Wedge, McDowell Mountain, to name a few. We have started a petition on Friday, 10/13, and we have over 130 signatures from parents around the neighborhood. I'm also working with companies that sell scooter parts and accessories, as this is a growing industry. There was a ride day on October 9th, which is Columbus Day. There was 300 to 400 scooter riders there without any incident. Please consider my request to work together to change the rules so everybody has equal access to these parks that we pay for.
Thank you so much for coming down and providing that important testimony. We'll make sure that our Parks Department leaders become aware of that issue, and obviously all the council members were able to hear that testimony as well. Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience as well. Was Mr. Rusnick able to stay? He had to leave. Okay, so Ms. Barker, did you want to provide testimony to this council for citizen comment?
Okay, we're here. Good evening, Mayor and
evening.
Council. And I'd like to present a pamphlet from MAG, and in there particularly, we talk about the Clean Air Act. This is 50 years anniversary of MAG, and our city makes up half of MAG. And what is MAG? MAG is a planning organization. Most of the money that comes in is coming from a regional tax, but we get federal money, and it is for the development of comprehensive plans through Maricopa County, and we're supposed to cut down on serious pollutants such as our carbon monoxide, our ozone, and our particulates. And so in reading the Clean Air Federal Register of August the 10th, our Scott Pruitt, who's the EPA administrator, is wanting not to regulate through litigation, but through solid rules. And what he's doing is he is extending the ozone. They're lowering the standard, tightening it up for October of 2018 in order to hopefully work with states, in this case, of course, MAG, into getting the culprits for the pollution of ozone, down. And also in reading the minutes, I want to say that the city was represented by the Environmental Department and explicitly talking about the trip reduction program to MAG within the last month, and I'm glad to see this because half the particulates and ozone problem is coming from on-road and off-road vehicles and trucks. So I wanted to give this in to Chris Meyer, and I don't know whether you float it through the departments because MAG has more than just planning. They have intricate domestic violence, homelessness, and the mayor knows about this, is all those missions to Mexico because we want to increase export in the economy and like this. And then finally, I'd like to just support Mr. Clark in what he's saying, that we don't want to have malicious reports or arrests of persons on our transit. I am a regular user, and I'm surprised that an area that hasn't been used to using public transit in the decades, the people do mobilize themselves, but there are culprits. I think that, because I don't see this transit security that much, and the thing is we have to have the citizenry, the people around there, to be able to actually make a citizen's request. We have a lot of people with cameras. We need to have the number where we can quickly report what is happening, and I should be able to say to somebody that's smoking and they're not, please don't do that, I'm allergic. Most of the people respond and stop to it, okay? So let's use some common sense in this.
Thank you so very much for that testimony. Jay Minich, and then followed by Mike Smith. Great to see you.
Nice to see you. Good evening, council members. My name is Jay Minnick, and I'm the Director of Finance and Administration for Andre House of Arizona. Andre House has been in the Phoenix area 32 years, serving meals, as many of you are aware, to folks struggling with poverty and homelessness. And the reason we're here tonight is really to just advocate for our homeless population. We've had a chance to talk to Councilman Nowakowski and Ms. Gallego in the past as well. And what we're seeing in our area is the challenges our homeless guests go through with both security, with trash cleanup, things that that anyone would struggle with in that area. So the Human Services campus across the street has a shelter, as you guys know, CAS, that holds 500 individuals a night. And then we have another approximately 300 going onto the floor of St. Vincent de Paul every night, sleeping a couple inches from each other. That's a dining facility, and it's just a real challenge to keep pests out of there. We have multiple incidents of violent crime each day. The Human Services campus does a phenomenal job, and they've been going through some reorganization in handling as much as they can, but there's simply just not enough resources. We constantly have probably about 1,100 people down there each night. Usually a couple hundred are on the blocks around our area, and we really just want to see what else can be done. The police right now have, obviously they're resourced thin, but at night they have no presence down there, and we've certainly have built a great relationship with them. We're trying to work with them on what we can do. So we really just wanted to bring awareness to this issue and see what else we can do from a resource standpoint. These are some of the most severely disadvantaged folks in our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that important testimony and for the work that Andre House does. It's great. We really appreciate it. How about Mike Smith?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. My name is Mike Smith, and I'm a weekly volunteer at Andre House, as well as a board member. And having the firsthand experience of our guests, as we call them, it's a unique group and a unique situation that breeds potential problems, if you will. The average person may be a drug abuser, may be battling alcohol addiction, may have mental illness, or maybe just fell on hard times and their life of living in 110 degrees is quite difficult. And occasionally we get some troublemakers down there. A knife is pulled, drugs are taken, things happen down there. And our operation is run 99% by the volunteer community from around this great city. Many of the suburbs, people come down 30 miles, 40 miles one way to volunteer to help these people who need our help, regardless of what your affiliation is in life. Okay, keeping that in mind. But when the volunteers don't feel safe, and we have to walk them to the cars or watch them go to their cars, or wow, the police aren't here like they used to be. And don't make a mistake, your police people are outstanding. The fire department, the paramedics, the police, they're well trained, they know what they're doing, they have all of our respect. But when resource allocation changes, when we have things such as Tent City, when we have human stuff laying around in the alleys and things of that nature, and our charge of food, we serve 500 to 600 meals a night, 6 nights a week. Our average charge costs us, with our volunteers and people who donate money, it's about $2.40 a nutritious meal. When you have a pregnant, unwed, street mother looking at you and she's looking at nutrition, she needs those things. Some people say, oh, they're all street people. They're not. Some people are actually out of prison, they're in hard times, and they have got a job and they can afford housing, they can't afford food. We are that bridge to their future in society. We make a difference, and because of that, we ask your help relative to the volunteers, because if they don't come, we can't provide the service. And it's important to the Phoenix and the people of this town. So we'd appreciate, Councilman, you're involved. Help us help you in many ways in terms of what we do as a city. It's important for all of us, and it can make a difference. Thank you.
Excellent testimony. Thank you for your leadership and board service for Andre House. Sean Severu, did you provide testimony for this council?
Mayor and members of council, I come to you today with a citizen petition. All across the U.S., monuments to the Confederacy and slavery are being removed. However, in August, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey stated that it's not my desire or mission to tear down any monuments or memorials. So I respectfully request for the City Council to submit written correspondence to the Governor, calling him to expend all of his powers in the efforts to remove these disturbing symbols of slavery, some of which are located within the city of Phoenix. One of them sits right down the street at Wesley Bolin Memorial Plaza. This monument, as it sits right alongside many legitimate monuments, legitimizes slavery and casts a dark shadow upon the Capitol. Phoenix cannot claim to be an inclusive city if it does not stand to fight against hatred. Several of the monuments throughout Phoenix have already been vandalized, which is not the solution to this problem, but in lieu of action, I fear it will continue to happen. I think the council has an opportunity and a responsibility as collective representative of the largest and most diverse city in the state of Arizona to do everything in its power to influence the removal of these disturbing monuments throughout our city and throughout our state. Thank you, and is there someone I can hand this petition off to?
Our city clerk or some representative of the office will receive that petition. Thank you, very much, Mr. Chevrolet. Next will be Reverend Jarrett Maupin.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You guys probably already got an email from me with the petition that I'm introducing. I have revised one for the clerk or whomever can collect it to give to you. And the petition, I won't read it. There's 8 whereases and a therefore, and it's been a long day. I don't sound like James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman, so I won't read it. You all can certainly read it. But it calls for, in essence, a ban on bump stocks in the city of Phoenix. I've been part of a large national clergy coalition. We just had a meeting about 5 days ago in the city of Chicago to talk about how we can curb gun violence and illegal modifications that are made to semi-automatic weapons to, in essence, convert them to automatic weapons. The Congress agrees something must be done. The President agrees something must be done. You know, and I'm glad that I wasn't here last week to introduce it and had a little bit of an injury to my right knee because it kept me from driving, and that kept me in one place. And so I was able to answer more calls than usual. And from the time that I gave you the initial petition, I've had time to hear from folks at the NRA. I've had time to hear from folks who are gun advocates. I've had time to hear from folks on legislative staff. I've had time to reach out to some council staff members. And while I very much like the final draft of the petition that you see, on the second page of it is some recommended amended language if you were to take action that actually came from groups of people who would be considered very much pro-gun, NRA members, people that we talked to in at the ATF, again, people down at the state legislature. We said, how are we going to bring together people who traditionally advocate against guns or modifying guns and people who advocate for guns? It's an extremely contentious issue. So I thank God I was slightly injured, so I had time to talk with people who I wouldn't normally talk with. And, you know, I can't argue with quality compromise. And while it isn't the same, therefore, that I had, it's something. And I think it's mindful of what our state laws are doing, and it's mindful of what federal law permits. But the bump stocks, as you know, there were 12 that were found at that crime scene at the shooting of the Las Vegas Strip. They're dangerous, and our police officers could be harmed, our crowds could be harmed. I'm someone who goes to a lot of and organizes a lot of public events or demonstrations. The terror that someone could unleash at any given time with something that is rather cheap and easily available is frightening. And according to the folks we talked to at the ATF and when we reached out to some of our congressional representatives, what the bump stock does to modify the semi-automatic rifles It's not legal. Even the NRA, Wayne LaPierre, we talked with his
Reverend Mumford, you gotta
legislative
finish
aid.
up your thoughts. You're out of
Yeah.
time here.
Okay, so thank you for
We got the
considering it.
petition. Thank you much for submitting it. Is there any other individuals here for citizen comment? With that, our meeting is adjourned.